Mr. Midshipman Easy, Chapter 31. In the regular set to, in which the parties beaten are not knocked down, but rise higher and higher at each discomfiture, nothing but the troops could have prevented them from going up to heaven. Don Robert and his two sons quit the room. Gascoigne entered into conversation with the Signor, while Easy took this opportunity of addressing Agnes. He had been much too occupied with the consultation to pay her much attention before. He had spoken with his eyes fixed upon her and been surprised at the improvement which had taken place in less than a year. He now went to her and asked her in a low voice whether she had received his letter. "Oh, yes," replied she, colouring. "Were you angry with what I said, Agnes?" in a low tone. "No," replied she, casting her eyes down on the floor. "I repeat now what I said, Agnes. I have never forgotten you. But what? Father Tommaso? What of him? He never will." "Well, what? You are a heretic," he says. "Tell him to mind his own business. He is great on my father and mother. Your brothers are on our side." "I know that, but there will be great difficulty. Our religion is not the same. He must talk to you. He will convert you." "We'll argue that point. Agnes will convert him if he has common sense. If not, it's no use arguing with him. Where is he?" "He will soon be at home. Tell me, Agnes, if you had your own will, would you marry me?" "I don't know. I never seen anyone I like so well." "Is that all?" "It is not enough for a maiden to say so," replied Agnes, raising her eyes and looking reproachfully. "Signora, let me go. Here comes my father." Notwithstanding, Jack cast his eyes to the window, where Gascoigne and the Signora were in converse, and perceiving that the old lady's back was turned, he pressed Agnes to his bosom before he released her. The gentlemen then returned with all the firearms and destructive weapons they could collect. "We have enough," observed Don Philip, "to arm all the people we have with us." We are well armed," replied Jack, who had left Agnes standing alone. "What now are your plans?" "Those we must consult about, it appears." But this moment the conversation was interrupted by the sudden entrance of Pedro, dispatched to the town with a load of wine. He rushed in, flurried and heated, with his red cap in his hand. "How now, Pedro, back so early?" "Oh, Signora," exclaimed the man, "they've taken the cart and the wine and have drawn away up the mountains." "Who?" inquired Don Ribera. "The galley slaves been let loose, and by the body of our blessed saint they've done pretty mischief. They have broken into the houses, robbed everything, murdered many, clothed themselves with the best, let all the arms, provisions, and wine they could lay their hands on, and marched away into the mountains. This took place this night. As I was coming down within a mile of the town, they met me with my loaded cart, and they turned the bullocks round and drove them away along with the rest. By the Blessed Virgin, they are stained with blood, but not altogether men, for they have cut up some of the oxen. I found this from one of the herdsmen. He too fled, and could not tell me more. So now I heard them mention your name." "I have no doubt of it," replied Don Ribera. "As for the wine, I only hope they will drink too much of it tonight. Pedro, they will be here, and they must defend ourselves. So call the men together. I must speak to them." "We shall never see the bullocks again," observed Pedro mournfully. "No, but we shall never see one another again if we do not take care. By information they come here tonight." "Holy St. Francis, they say there are 1,000 of them." "Not quite so many to my knowledge," observed Jack. "They told me that a great many were killed in their attack upon the town before they entered it." "So much the better. Go now, Pedro. Drink a cup of wine, and then do call the other men." As the barricade as well as circumstances could permit, the first floor was also made a fortress by loading the landing place with armoires and chests of drawers. The upper story attic, if it might be so called, was defended the same way, and they might retreat from one to the other if the doors were forced. It was 8 o'clock in the evening before all was ready, and they were all still occupied with the last defense under the superintendence of Mesti, who showed himself an able engineer when they heard the sound of an approaching multitude. They looked out of the windows and perceived the house surrounded by the galley slaves, a number apparently about 100. They all dressed in the most fantastic manner with whatever they could pick up. They had some firearms. Most of them were supplied only with swords and knives. But they came also their cortege of plunder, carts of various descriptions loaded with provisions of all sorts. And when women lashed down with ropes, sails from the vessels and boats to supply them with covering in the mountains, hay and straw mattresses. Their plunder appeared to be well chosen for their exigencies. To the carts were tied a variety of cattle intended to accompany them to their retreat. They all appeared to be under a leader who was issuing directions. The leader was soon recognized by those in the house to be Don Silvio. "Master Easy, show me that man," said Messi when he heard the conversation between Easy and the Riberas. "Only let me know him." "Do you see him there, Messi, walking down in front of those men? He has a musket in his hand, a jacket with silver buttons, and white trousers." "Yes, Master Easy, me see him well." "Let me look a little more." "That enough." The galley slaves appeared to be very anxious to surround the house, that no one should escape, and Don Silvio was arranging the men. "Ned," said Jack, "let us show him that we are here. He said that he would acquaint Don Ribera with arrival. Let us prove to him that he is too late." "It would not be a bad plan," replied Gascoigne, "if it were possible that these cells had any gratitude among them. Some of them might relent to the idea of attacking those who saved them." "Not a bit. It will prove to them that they are more in the house than they think for, and we might frighten some of them by telling them that the soldiers are near at hand." Jack immediately drew up the casement and called in a loud voice, "Don Silvio, galley slave, Don Silvio." The party hailed turned round and beheld Jack, Gascoigne, and Messi standing at the window of the upper floor. "We have saved you the trouble of announcing us," called out Gascoigne. "We are here to receive you, and in 3 hours the troops will be here. So you must be quick, Don Silvio," continued Jack. A rivet law, continued Gascoigne, letting by his pistol at Don Silvio. The window was then immediately closed. The appearance of our heroes and their communication with the speedy arrival of the troops was not without effect. The criminals trembled at the idea. Don Silvio was mad with rage. He pointed out to the men the necessity of immediate attack, the probability of the troops arriving so soon. The wealth he expected was locked up by Don Ribera in his mansion. This routed them when they advanced to the doors, which they attempted to force without success, losing several men by the occasional fire from those within the house. Finally, their efforts after half an hour's repeated attempts to be useless, they retreated, and then bringing up a long piece of timber which required 60 men to carry it, they rammed it against the door, and the weight and impetus of the timber drove it off its hinges, and an entrance was obtained. This was dark. The lower story had been abandoned, but the barricade at the head of the stairs opposed their progress. Being loopholes been prepared by the defenders, who had now opened a smart fire upon the assailants, the latter having no means of returning it effectually, had they had ammunition for their muskets, which forcibly had not been able to procure. The combat now became fierce, and the galleys were several times repulsed, with great loss during a contest of 2 hours. Encouraged by Don Silvio, refreshed by repeated draughts of wine, they continued by degrees, removing their barriers opposed to them. You have to repeat, exclaimed Don Ribera. Very soon they will have torn down all. What do you think, Signor Easy? Hold this as long as we can. How are we for ammunition? Plenty as yet. Plenty will last for 6 hours, I think. What do you say, Messi? By holy St. Patrick, I still hold out here. They got no firearms, and we have at arm length. The decision was the occasion of the first defense being held for 2 hours more, and occasional relief being afforded by the retreat of the convicts to the covered carts. At last it was evident the barricade was no longer tenable, for the heavy pieces of furniture they had heaped up to oppose entrance were completely hammered to fragments by poles brought up by the assailants and used as battering rams. It resounded they all hastened to the other story, where the ladies were already placed, and the galley slaves were seen in possession of the first floor. Exasperated by the defense, mad with wine and victory, but finding nothing. Again was the attack made upon the second landing, but as the stairs were now narrow and their defense strong in proportion, they for a long while gained no advantage. Many of their men were wounded and taken down below. The darkness light prevented both parties from seeing distinctly, which was rather in favor of the assailants. Many climbed over the fortress of piled up furniture and killed as soon as they appeared on the other side, and at last the only ammunition used was against those who made this rash attempt. For more long hours did the assault and defense continue until daylight came, and then the plan of assault was altered. They got out the poles, hammered the pieces of furniture into fragments, and gained ground. The defenders were worn out with fatigue, but flinched not. They knew that their lives and the lives of those dearest to them were at stake, and they never relaxed their exertions, till the criminals, with Sylvia at their head, progressed. The distance between the parties gradually decreased, and there was but one massive chest of drawers now defending the landing place, and over which there was a constant succession of blows from long poles and cutlasses. Returned with the bullets from their pistols. We must now fight for our lives, exclaimed Gascoigne Easy, for what else can we do? Do we get on the roof and fight there then, replied Jack. By the by, that's well thought of, Jack, said Gascoigne. Messi, up and see if there's any place we can retreat to in case of need. Messi hastened to obey, and soon returned with a report that there was a trapdoor leading to the loft under the roof, and that they could drag the ladder up after them. They may laugh at them, cried Jack. Messi, stay here while I and Gascoigne assist the ladies up by explaining to Don Ribera and to their domestics why they went. Easy and Gascoigne hastened up to Signor and Agnes, conducted them up the ladder into the loft, and requested them to have no fear. They returned to the defense on the stairs and joined their companions. They found them hard pressed, and there was little chance of holding out much longer, but the stairs were narrow, and the assailants could not bring their force against them. Now, as the defences were nearly destroyed, although the convicts could not reach them with their knives, they brought up a large supply of heavy stones, which they threw with great force and execution. 2 of Don Ribera's men and Don Martin were struck down, and this new weapon proved most fatal. Must retreat, Jack, said Gascoigne. The stones can do no harm where they are going. What think you, John Philip? I agree with you. Let those who are wounded be first carried up, and then we will follow. This is effected, and as soon as the wounded men were carried up, the lad and their arms taken up to prevent their falling into the hands of the assailants. We were now of little use to them, the ammunition being exhausted. The whole body went to the large room which contained the trapdoor of the loft, and as soon as they were up, they drew the ladder after them. They had hardly effected something when they followed with the yells and shouting of the galley slaves, who had passed the last barriers and thought themselves sure of their prey, but they were disappointed. They found them more secure than ever. Nothing could exceed the rage of Don Silvio, the protracted resistance of the party, and the security of their retreat. To get at them was impossible, so he determined to set fire to the room. Suffocating them, he could do no otherwise. He gave his directions to his men, who rushed down for straw, but in so doing carelessly passed from the trapdoor. Messi carried up with him 2 or 3 of those stones, dashed one down on the head of Don Silvio, fell immediately. He was carried when his orders were put in execution. The room was filled with straw and fodder and lighted. The effects were soon felt. The trapdoor was shut, but the heat and smoke burst through. After about a time, the planks and rafters took fire, and the situation was terrible. A small trapdoor in the roof on the side of the house was knocked open and gave them a temporary relief, but now the rafters burned and crackled, and the smoke burst on them in thick columns. They could not see, and with difficulty could breathe. Fortunately, the room below that which had been fired was but one of 4 of the attics, and as the loft they were in spread over the whole of the roof, they were able to remove far from it. The house was slated with massive slate of some 100 weight each, and it was not found possible to remove them, so to give air, although frequent attempts were made. Don Ribera sank exhausted in the arms of her husband, and Agnes fell into those of our hero, who, enveloped in the smoke, kissed her again and again, and the poor girl, thinking that they were most invariably perished, made no scruples in what she supposed in that moment returning proofs of their ardent attachment. Master, easy, help me here. Master Gascoigne, come here. Now head up all your weight. When we get one off, we will get plenty. So Messi, Jack, and Gascoigne put their soldiers to one of the lower slates. It yielded, was disengaged, and slid down with a loud rattling below. Ladies were brought to it, and their heads put outside. They soon recovered, and now that they recovered one, they found no difficulty in removing others. As they were all with their heads in the open air, but still the house was on fire below, and they had no chance of escape. As while they were debating upon that point and consulting as to their choice of safety, that a breeze of wind wafted the smoke that issued from the roof away from them, and they beheld the detachment of troops making up to the house. A loud cheer was given, and attracted the noise of the soldiers. They perceived Easy and his companions. The house was surrounded, entered in an instant. The Gallies were in the house, searching for the treasure reported by Don Silvio to be concealed, were captured or killed. And in 5 minutes the troops in possession. But how to assist those above was a difficulty. The room below was in flames and burning furiously. There was no ladders that could reach so high, and there was no means of getting to them. The commandant made signs from below as if to ask what he was to do. I see no chance, observed Don Philip mournfully. Easy, my dear fellow, and you, Gascoigne, I am sorry that the feuds of our family should have brought you to such a dreadful death, but what can be done? I don't know, replied Jack, unless we could get ropes. You quite sure? Massey, is that all galley rascals below gone? Asked Massey. Yes, replied Easy. You may see that. Look at them down under charge of the soldiers. Yes, sir, I think it high time we go too. So do I, Massey, but how? How? Stop a little. Come help me, Master Easy. This board, the lofthouse floor, is loose. Come help me, all of you. They all went in with united strength, pulled up the board. Now strike like hell, and drive down to Plash, said Massey, commencing the operation. Even as they had beaten an opening into one of the rooms below on fire, pulled up another board, and Massey having fetched the ladder, they all descended in safety, and to the astonishment of the commander of the troops, stalked to the door of the house. Those who had been stunned with the stones and so recovered as to require little assistance. So shouted as they saw them appear, supporting the females. The commanding officer was an intimate friend of Don Philip, flew to his arms. These were carefully examined by Massey, and Don Silva was not among them. He might, however, be among the dead who were left in the house, which now began to burn furiously. The galleys were captured and mounted in number to 47. The dead they could not count. The major part of the plunder and the carts were still where they had been drawn up. As soon as the culprits had been secured, the attention of the troops was directed to putting out the flames. But their attempts were ineffectual. The mansion was burned to the bare walls, and but little of the furniture was saved. Indeed, the major part of it had been destroyed in the attack made by Don Silva and his adherents. Leaving direction of Pedro and his people, and that property collected by the miscreants should be restored to the owners. Don Ribeiro ordered the horses, and with the whole party put himself under protection of the troops, and as soon as they had been refreshed, taking suppose to bent their way back to Palermo with the galley slaves bound and linked together in a double row. They halted when they had gone halfway and remained for the night. The next day at noon, Don Ribeiro and his family were once more in their palazzo, and our 2 midshipmen, Massey, took their leave and repaired on board to make themselves a little less like chimney sweepers. Wilson was not out of the ship. Jack made his report and then went down below, very much pleased at what had passed, especially as it had been another long yarn for the governor on his return to Malta. Which our hero and Gascoigne ought to be ashamed of themselves and did feel what might be called midshipman compunction. The Aurora continued 3 weeks at Palermo, during which the most active search had been made for the remainder of the galley slaves, and some few had been captured. Besides Don Silvio, a considerable number were at large, but it was said that they had retired to the fastness in the mountains. Our hero was constantly on shore at Don Ribeiro's house, and after what had passed, he was now looked upon as soon to become a member of the family. His religion was overlooked by Don Ribeiro and the relations, all but the confessor, Father Tommaso. He now began to agitate and fulminate into the ears of the Don Ribeiro all the plans and penalties of attending heretical conviction, excommunication, and under-denomination. The effects of his remonstrances were soon visible, and Jack found that there was constraint on the part of the old lady. Tears on the part of Agnes and all Father confessors hardly wished the devil 10 times a day on the part of Don Philip and his brother. Last from the truth of Agnes, who told her tale and wept bitterly. Ned, I don't like the appearance of things, observed Jack. I must get rid of that Father Tommaso. Find that rather difficult, observed Gascoigne, and besides, if you were rid of him, you would have his place filled up with another. He's frightened the poor old woman into the dismals, and has the pains of purgatory on her already. I shall go and talk to Massey. How can Massey help you? I don't know, but you can't. So, for want of better advice, I'll try the Ashanti. Here went to Massey, and laid the difficult affair open to him. I see, said Massey, showing his felty. You want him skull. No, I don't, Massey, but I want him out of the way. How that possible, Master? Does your ship sail day after tomorrow? Now, suppose I have time. I soon manage all that. Stop a little. Confound it, but there's no stopping, replied Jack. Suppose, Master, you get leave to go on shore, and not come off again. That will be deserting, Massey. By holy poker, I have it. You go on shore and break your leg. Break my leg. Leave, you mean? No, Massey, you break your leg, then Captain leave you ashore, and leave me to take care of you. But how should I break my leg, and how am I to break my leg? Only pretend break leg, Master Easy. Go talk. Master Don Philip, he managed all that. Suppose man break his leg in some pieces. It is not possible to take him on board. 7 pieces, Master, is rather too many. However, I'll think of this. Jack then went and consulted Gascoigne, and approved of Massey's advice, and thought this scheme feasible. If you could only pretend that we were thrown out of a carrier-coal, you break your leg, a compound fracture, of course, I break my arm, both left on shore at the sick quarters of Massey to take care of us. Captain Lee, replied Jack, I really would not mind if it really took place. At all events, we'll overturn the carrier-cola. Shall we get leave that for the last day? Yes, it's 2 days since I've been on shore, for I have not liked to go to Don Ribeiro since what Agnes told me. So my clothes are all on shore, and then will be an excuse for a few hours. Our two midshipmen applied for leave the next morning to be off in the afternoon. The first lieutenant gave them permission. They hastened to the hotel, sent for Don Philip, and made him a party to their plan. He readily promoted his assistance, for he had resolved that our hero should marry his sister, and was fearful of the effect of his absence, with Friar Tomaso's influence over his mother. He went to the sergeant of his regiment, who immediately entered in the scheme. Our two midshipmen got into a caracole, rattled up and down the streets, and perceiving Captain Wilson in his window, flogged the horse into a gallop. When abreast of the barracks, Jack ran the wheel against the bank, and threw himself and Gascoigne out. Midshipmen are never hurt by these acts, but fortunate for the success of the enterprise, their faces were cut and bruised. Don Philip was standing by, called the men to pick up our two scamps, carried them into the barracks, and sent for the surgeons. He also put Jack's leg into an altitude of splints, and did the same to Gascoigne's arm. They were then put to bed, their confused faces with the blood left in statu quo, while Don Philip sent an orderly, as from the commandant, to Captain Wilson. When the two of his officers had been thrown out of a caracole and were lying dangerously hurt at the barracks. Yet if it must be Mr. Easy and Mr. Gascoigne, said Captain Wilson, whose intelligence was communicated. I saw them galloping down the street like two madmen just now. Cause to take the gig on board, and then tell the surgeon to come on shore immediately and bring him up to me at the barracks. He then put on his hat, buckled on his sword, and hastened to ascertain the extent of the injury. Don Philip cut out of the way, but the captain was ushered in the room by one of the officers, where he found in two beds our midshipmen stretched out, the surgeon of the forces, the regimental surgeon in consultation between them. While attendants were standing by each bed with restoratives, the medical gentleman saluted Captain Wilson, looked very grave, talked about fractures, contusions, injuries in the most interpretable manner, hoped that Mr. Easy would recover, but had doubts. The other gentleman might do well with care, that is, as far as his arm was concerned, but there appeared to be a concussion of the brain. Wilson looked at the cut and blood-smeared faces of the two young men, and waited with anxiety the arrival of his own surgeon, who came at last, puffing with the haste he had made, and received the report of the brothers of the faculty. Leg of Mr. Easy's fracture in two places had been set, bone protruding, and not possible to move him. Gascoigne, arm compound fracture, concussion of the brain not certain. Now that all this would have been discovered to be false, the surgeon able to examine is true. But how could he not credit the surgeon of the forces and the regimental surgeon, and how could he put the young men to fresh tortures, removing splints and unsettling limbs? Politeness, if nothing else, prevented his doing so, for it would have been as much as to say that either he did not credit the report or that he doubted their skill. Later, he and his companion kept their eyes closed and breathed heavily, with their mouths open, put on a grave face as well as his brothers in the yard, and reported to Captain Wilson. When can they be moved, Mr. Daly? Inquired the latter. I cannot wait. We must sail tomorrow, the next day at the farthest. The surgeon was in duty bound, put the question to the others, who replied there would be no great risk in moving before the fever, which might be expected the next day, and which might last 10 days. It was better not think of moving them, as they should have every care and attention where they were, and could rejoin the ship at Malta. Mr. Daly, the surgeon, agreed that this would be the most prudent step, and Captain Wilson then gave his consent. He suddenly walked to the bed of Gascoigne and spoke to him, but Gascoigne knew that he was to have a concussion of the brain, and he made no reply, nor gave any signs of knowing that Captain Wilson was near him. He then went on to our hero. At the sound of Captain Wilson's voice, slowly opened his eyes without moving his head, and prepared to recognize him. "In much pain, Easy," said the captain kindly. Easy closed his eyes again and murmured, "Mesty, Mesty." "He wants his servant, the ship's corporal, sir," said the surgeon. "Well," replied Captain Wilson, "he had better have him. He is a faithful fellow, and will nurse him well. When you go on board, Mr. Daly, desire the first lieutenant to send Mesty on shore with Mr. Gascoigne's and Mr. Easy's chests, in his own bag and hammock. Good heavens, I would not for £1,000 if this accident had occurred. Poor foolish boys, they run in couples, and if one's in a scrape, the other isn't sure to share it. Gentlemen, I return many thanks for your kindness, and I must accept of your promised care for my unfortunate officers. I sail tomorrow daylight. You will oblige me by informing their friends, their bearers of their mischance, so I am sure they will contribute all they can to their comfort." So saying, Captain Wilson bowed and quit the room, followed by the surgeon. Soon as the door was closed, the midshipmen turned their heads round and looked at each other, but they were afraid to speak at first, in case of the return of the surgeon. As soon as it was announced to them that Captain Wilson and Mr. Daly were outside the barrack gate, our hero commenced. "Do you know, Ned, that my conscience smites me? If it had not been that I should have betrayed those who wished to oblige us, when Captain Wilson appeared so much hurt and annoyed at our accident, I was very near getting up and telling him of the imposition to relieve his mind. You, Jack, and I felt much the same, but what's done cannot be undone. We must not keep up the opposition for the sake of those who help us, who have deceived him. I don't think that you would find an English surgeon who would have consented to such an imposition. No, that is certain, but after all, it was an imposition that has hurt nobody. No, I do not wish to moralize, but I repent of my share in the deceit, and had it to be done over again, I would not consent to it, not even for it, but I won't mention your name in barracks." "I don't know," replied Jack, "but let's say no more about it, and thank these gentlemen for their kindness." "Yes, but we must keep it up until we see the Aurora under all sail." "And long or true," replied Jack, "we must not let the affair get wind even on shore. We must not recover quickly, but will still appear to recover. Don Robert and his wife must be deceived. I have a plot in my head, but I cannot work it out till I see Mesty." Don Philip now came in. He had seen Captain Wilson, who had requested him to look after the two invalids, and stated his intention to sail the next morning. They consulted, and it was agreed that no one should be acquainted with the real fact but his brother Martin, and that all Palermo should be deceived as Captain Wilson, for if not, it would put Tomaso on the qui vive, and make him fulminate more than ever. Our midshipmen ate an excellent dinner, and they remained in bed conversing till it was time to go to sleep, but long before that Mesty had made his appearance with their clothes. The eyes of the Ashanti said that all was necessary. Never spoke a word, but unlashed his hammock and lay down in a corner, and they were soon all three asleep. Morning, Captain Wilson called to ascertain how our hero and his companion were, but the room had been darkened, and he could not see their faces plainly. He thanked him for his kindness in allowing Messi to attend them, and having received his orders to joining the ship as soon as they recovered. He promised to be very cautious in their behavior and keep out of all scrapes. He wished them a speedy recovery and departed. A little more than half an hour afterwards, Messi, who had been peeping out of the shutters, suddenly threw them open with a loud laugh. The row was under way with studding sails below and aloft standing out of the rows. Jack and Gascoigne got up, threw off the splints, and induced danced about in their shirts. As soon as they were quiet again, Messi said in a grave tone, "Den, why are you at sea, Master Easy?" "Very true, Messi, but I ask myself that question often enough lately, because I'm a fool, I suppose." "And I, because I can't help it," replied Gascoigne. "Never mind, we are on shore now, and I'm looking for a famous cruise." "But first we must see what the ground is we are to cruise on," replied Jack. "So, Messi, let us have a palaver, so they say in your country." The midshipmen got into their beds, and Messi sat on the chest between them, looking as grave as a judge. Just how to get rid of the Padre Tommaso? Was he to be thrown over the molehead to beat the fishes, or his skull broke? Was Messi's knife to be resorted to? Was he to be kidnapped or poisoned? Or a fair means to be employed? Persuasion, bribery. Everyone knows how difficult it is to get rid of a priest. As the hero and Gascoigne were not Italians, they thought that the bribery would be the more English-like way of doing the thing, so they composed a letter to be delivered by Messi the friar, in which Jack offered to Father Tommaso a moderate sum of $1,000, but to allow the marriage to proceed and not frighten the old lady with ecclesiastical squibs and crackers. As Messi was often on shore with Jack and knew the friar very well by sight, it was agreed the letter should be confided to his charge. It was not consistent that a person in such a state as our hero was represented to be sit up and write letters. The delivery was deferred by a few days. After waiting that time, Messi delivered the letter to the friar, made signs that he was to take back the answer. The friar beckoned him to accompany him to his room, where he read the letter, and then again made signs for him to follow him. The friar led the way to his monastery, and as soon as Messi was in his cell, he summoned another who could speak English to act as interpreter. "Is your master recovering?" "Yes," replied Messi. "He is at present doing well." "Have you served him long?" "No," replied Messi. "Are you very fond of him? Does he treat you well? Will give you plenty of money?" At these questions the artful black conceived that there was something in the wind, and he therefore very quietly replied, "I do not care much for him." The friar fixed his keen eye upon Messi, and perceived there was a savage look about the black, from which he argued that he was a mad who exceeded his purpose. "Your master offers me $1,000. Would you give to grant this money for yourself?" Messi grinned and showed his sharp filed teeth. "It would make me a rich man in my own country." "Would," replied the friar. "Now you shall have it. You shall only give your master a small powder." "I understand," replied Messi. "Have these things in my country." "Well, do you consent? If so, I will write the letter to get the money." "Suppose they sign me out," replied Messi. "You be safe, and you shall be sent away as soon as possible. Say, will you consent the whole $1,000, every one of them? Then give me the powder." "Sailor," replied the friar, who was out of the cell, and in about 10 minutes returned with an answer to our hero's letter and a paper containing grayish powder. "Give him this in a soup or something. Tread it on his meat, or mix it up with the sugar if he eats an orange." "I see," replied Messi. "The $1 shall be yours. I swear it on the Holy Cross." Messi grinned real horribly, took his credentials, and asked, "When I come again?" "So if you receive the money, bring it to me at Don Ribera's. Then give the powder. As soon as he is given, you must let me know. Must not remain in Palermo. I will let myself conduct you to a place of safety." Messi then quit the cell and was shown out of the monastery. "By the holy porker, he be one dashed rascal," muttered Messi, as he was on the open air. "But stop a little." The shanty soon arrived at the barracks and repeated the whole of the conference between him and Friar Tommaso. "Must be poison, of course," observed Gascoigne. "Suppose we try it upon some animal." "No, Master Gascoigne," replied Messi. "I try it myself by and by. Know what we do." "Let's give you the orders for the $1,000, Messi," replied Jack. "The rascal here writes to me for that sum. Consent not to oppose me, but agrees to assist my cause. But the greater question is whether you shall keep his word with you, Messi. If not, I shall lose my money. So therefore we must now have another palaver and argue the point." The point was argued between Jack and Gascoigne. $1,000 was a large sum, but Jack's father was a philosopher. There were many pros and cons. At last said the money should be given to Messi, for Messi should state when he took the money to the friar that he administered the powder, and that he meant when he presented it. Next to the order for the money was given to Messi, and he went to Friar Tommaso with it. The friar hastened with Messi the monastery and sent for the interpreter. "You have gotten it," replied the friar. "Yes, not 1 hour ago. Here the order for the money. Must run for the money before he is dead, for the powder is very rapid." "And me," replied Messi, apparently much alarmed. "Where am I to go?" "As soon as you bring the money here, you must go back to the barracks. Remain there till he is dead, and then return here. I will have all ready and take you as soon as it's dusk to a monastery of our order in the mountains, where no one will think of looking for you, till the affair is blown over, and then I will find you a passage in some vessel out of the island." Messi hasted for the money, and taking in a large bag to the monastery, delivered to the friar's charge, and returned to the barracks to Easy and Gascoigne. For each should go with the friar, who would probably remain away some time. Indeed, Messi insisted upon so doing. Messi stayed 2 hours, and then returned about dusk to the monastery and reported the death of our hero. He remained there until it was dark, and then the friar ordered him with a bag of dollars to a saddleboat. They mounted 2 mules, and it was still already in comparison quitted Palermo. The morning Don Philip, as usual, made his appearance, and told our hero that the friar had been summoned away by the abbot and would not return for some time. "I can tell you this news," said Don Philip, "as I thought it would please you, but the sooner you are now well, the better. I mean to propose your being removed to my father's palazzo. Then you can recover your lost ground during the confessor's absence." "I have the means," replied Jack, showing the friar's letter. Don Philip read it with astonishment, and was still more surprised when he heard the whole story from Jack. This time silent. At last he said, "I am sorry for your poor black." "Why so?" replied Jack. You'll never see him again, depend upon it. $1,000 would sign the death warrant of 1,000 blacks, but there's another reason. They will put him out of the way, that he may not give evidence. Where is the powder? Mesty has it. He would not part with it. So you'd fill that, Black. He may be too much for the friar, replied Don Philip. He means mischief, I'm sure, replied Gascoyne. So I feel a great deal of alarm about him, replied Easy. I wish now that I had not let him go. Are you sure that he went? No, I'm not. The friar told him that he should take him to the mountains as soon as it was dark. Probably will, replied Don Philip. It's the best place to get rid of him. However, the whole of this story must be told both to my father and my mother. To the former they may take the right measures. My mother may open her eyes. Give me the copy of the letter you wrote to the friar, and then I shall have it all. The report of the accident which had occurred to Easy and Gascoyne had been fully spread and bitterly believed throughout Palermo. Indeed, as usual, had been magnified and asserted that it could not recover. To Agnes only had been the case been imparted in confidence by Don Philip, for her letter stressed at the first intelligence, Mrs. Gray that her brother could not conceal it. 2 days after, Don Philip had made his parents acquainted with the villainy of the friar. The midshipmen were transported to the palazzo, and much to the surprise had been much to the reports of the surgeons, dignified their duplicity and their falsehood by an amazing extension of their credit of skillful men. After the arrival of the palazzo, Don Ribeiro was also entrusted with the secret, but it went no further. As now there was no particular hurry for our hero to get well, he was contented and happy in the society of Agnes and her parents. The old lady, after she had been informed of the conduct of Friar Tommaso, having turned round in our hero's favour, and made a vow never to have confessed her in the house again. Jack and Gascoyne were now as happy as could be, and all their alarm was alone Mesty, for whose return they were most anxious. To Don Ribeiro, Jack made fully known his intentions with regard to Agnes. He fully satisfied him with his qualifications and his property. Don Ribeiro was fully aware of his debt of gratitude to our hero, but he also was required was the consent of Jack's father. Till this obtained, he would not consent to the marriage taking place. Jack had attempted to argue the point. His father said he had married without consulting him. That he had the right to marry without consulting his father. But Don Ribeiro, not having any acquaintance with the rights of man, Nicole did not feel the full force of Jack's argument, and made it a sine qua non that his parents should write and consent to the alliance before it took place. Which message should be called throughout Mephistopheles was abounds in black cloak disguised as daggers and dark deeds. On the 4th evening after the removal of our 2 midshipmen to the palazzo of Don Ribeiro, as they were sitting in company with Agnes and Don Philip in their own room, a friar made his appearance at the door. They all started, for his height they imagined to be Friar Tommaso, but no one addressed him. The friar shut the door without saying a word, and then lifting his cowl, which had been drawn over it, discovered the black face of Mesty. Agnes screamed, and all sprang from their seats at this unusual and unexpected apparition. Mesty grinned, and there was in his countenance which was said that he was much to communicate. Where is the friar, Mesty? Inquired Easy. Stop a little, master. Suppose he lock door first, and then I tell all. Taking the precaution, Mesty threw out the friars again, appeared in his own dress, with a bag of dollars hung round his body. Now, Master Easy, I have a long story to tell, so I think I'd better begin at the beginning. It is a most approved method, replied Jack. Stop when I told my finger that we may translate that you say to the lady and Don Philip. That all right, say friar, and I get on 2 mules as soon as it's quite dark. We make here all $1,000 and we ride out of town. We go up mountain and mounted, but the moon get up shine, and we go cheek by jowl. You never say one word, and I never say one word. So they know speak his lingo, and he no understand my English. About 2 o'clock in the morning, we stop at a house and stay there till 8 o'clock, and then we go on again till next day up all mountain. Only stop once, eat a bit of bread, and drink lily wine. Second night come on, and then we stop again, and people bow very low to him, and women bring in rabbit for make supper. I go in the kitchen, make woman make stew smell very nice. My head and I say very good, and she make a face, and throw on the table black loaf of bread and garlic. We sign for my supper, good enough for black fellow and rabbit stew for friar. Then I say to myself, stop a little, suppose friar have all the rabbit. I think I give him a little powder. The powder, Messi, exclaimed Jack. What does he say? Replied Don Philip. Gascoyne translated that Messi communicated. The interest of the narrative now being exciting, Messi continued. The then woman should go for a dish to put stew in, and I take the powder and drop it into pot. Then I sit down again and eat black bread, and she say good enough for black man. She stir up the stew once more, and then she pour it out in a dish and take it to the friar. He lick him chops by all the powers, and he like him so well, he pick up all the bones, and wipe up gravy with him bread. They're very nice, master friar. I think I but stop a little. After he drink a whole bottle of wine, he tell me bring mules to the door, and he put his hands on the woman's head, and then he pay for his supper. Moonshine bright when go up the mountains, always go up, and about 2 hours he get off his mule and put his hands so and sat down on the rock. He twist and he turn, he groan. No, Danny, look at me. Much as you say, you black villain, you do this. For he did not able to speak, and then I pull out the paper of the powder and show him. Make him sign he swallows. If he look again, and I laugh at him, and he die. Messy, exclaimed the hero, you should not have done that. There will be mischief come from it. Now he dead, Master Easy, no so less much this mischief. Gascoyne then interpreted Don Philip and Agnes, the former of whom looked very grave, and the latter terrified. Let him go on, said Don Philip. I'm most anxious to hear what he do with the body. Master Cress over here proceeded. Then I thought what I should do, and I said I would hide him, and I think I take his coat for myself, so pull him off his coat and pull off his other clothes, he not order many. Take the body of my arm and carry him where I find a great split in the rock above the road. I throw him in, and then I throw plenty large pieces of rock on him till I see him no more. Then take the 2 mules and get off mine with dollars, and lead the other 3-4 mule. So I come to a large wood, take off saddle and bridle, turn him on the drift. The terrible clothes all in little bits. Hide one piece here, another piece there, and the saddle and bridle in the bush. All right now, I say. So I put on friar cloak, hide my face, get on my mule, and then I look where I shall go. So I say, not in this road anyhow. I pass through wood till I find another. About 2 mile moon go down, all dark, and 5-6 men catch hold my bridle, and they all got arms, so I do nothing. Speaking, but I not answer, never show my face. They find all dollars, dash 'em fast enough, and they lead me away through the wood. At last we come to a large fire in the wood. Plenty men lie about, some eat and some drink. They pull me off and hold down my head and fold my arms just like friar do. They bring me along to one man and pour out all my dollars before him. He give me some order, and they take me away. And I peep through the cloak, and I say to myself, he that dashed galley slave rascal Don Silvio. Don Silvio, cried Jack. What does he say of Don Silvio? Demanded Don Philip. Massey's narrative was again interesting and continued. They led me away about 50 yards, tie me to the tree, and then they leave me, and they all drink and make merry, and other offer me anything, so I have nothing then to eat. Eat the ropes and gnaw them through, and then I stay there 2 hours till all go asleep and all quiet. For I say to myself, stop a little. Then they all fall fast asleep. I take up my knife, and I crawl along down the ground, as we do in country sometime. I stop and look about me. No man watch but two, and they look out for squirrel, not looking bored where I was. I crawl again till I lay down alongside that dashed galley slave Don Silvio, who lie fast asleep with my bag $1,000 under his head. You not have them long, you rascal. I look round all right, and I drive my knife good aim into his heart, and press the other hand on my mouth. But I make no noise, he struggle a little and look up, and then I throw off the head of the gown and show him my black face and look and try to speak, but I stop that, for down go my knife again, that dashed galley slave dead as herring. Somebody must tell this to Don Philip, said Gascoigne. Dead, Don Silvio dead. Dead, well, Messy, we are eternally obliged to you, for there is no safety for my father until he was living. Let him go on. So when I put the knife through his body, I lie down by him, as if nothing had happened, for 10 minutes, and then I take the bag of dollars from under his head, and then I feel him all over, and I find his pistols and his purse, which I have here all gold. So I take them, and I look, all asleep, and I crawl down to the tree. Then I say to think a little. The man on watch come up and look at me, but he think all right, and he go away again. Like a ding by the power, then I go back to tree. I wait again, and then I crawl and crawl till I clear of all, and then I take to my heel and run for my life till daylight come. Then I so tired lay down in bush. I stay in bush all day, and then I set off again back here, for I find road and know my way. Not eat den for day and one night, and I come to house where I put my head in, and find a woman there. Not able to speak, so help myself and not show my face. She not like that and make a bobbery. But I lifted my cloak and show my black face and white teeth, and then she think me devil. She run of the house, and I held myself very quick, and then set off again. And come close here yesterday morning. I hide myself all day and come night. And now, Master, you see, you have the whole truth, and you have your $1,000, and you have got rid of the rascal friar and that dashed galley slave Don Silvio. Tell them all this, Ned, said Jack, who, while Gascoigne was so employed, talked with Messy. I was very much frightened for you, Messy, said Jack, but still I thought you quite as cunning as a friar, and so it has turned out, but the $1,000 ought to be yours. No, sir, replied Messy, the dollar is not mine, but I have plenty of gold in Don Silvio's purse, plenty of gold. I keep my property, Master Easy, and you keep yours. But this affair may be found out, Messy. The moment will spread the report of having been attacked by a black friar, and that will lead to suspicion. As the other friars of this convent know that you left with Friar Tommaso. So I think that, but when a man's starved, he quite forget his thought. I don't blame you, but now I must talk to Don Philip. Suppose you do no objection. While you talk, I eat something from the table, then, Master Easy, for I am hungry enough to eat the friar, the mule, and all. You may, good fellow, and drink as much as you please. The consultation between our two midshipmen and Don Philip was not long. They perceived the immediate necessity for the departure of Messy. Suspicion which were attached to themselves. Don Philip and Agnes left them to go to Don Roberto, and I became acquainted with what had passed and to ask advice. They went into the room. Don Roberto immediately accosted his son. Have you heard, Philip, that Friar Tommaso has returned at last? So the servants tell me. The report may be fortunate, replied Don Philip, but I love another story to tell you. Then sat down and departed Don Roberto all the adventures of Messy. Don Roberto was for some time in deep thought, but at last he replied, Don Silvio is no more as fortunate, and the negro would be entitled to reward for his destruction, but for the friar that is a bad business. He might remain and tell the whole story, and the facts might be proved by the evidence of Signor Easy and the letters, but what then? We should raise the whole host of the clergy against our house. We have suffered too much from them already. The best plan would be the immediate departure, not only of the negro, but of our two young friends. So if Friar Tommaso being here, and the departure with the negro servant to rejoin the ship will remove much suspicion and destroy all inquiry. Must be off immediately. Go to them, Philip, and pour out to them the absolute necessity of this measure, and tell our young friend that religiously adhere to my promise. And as soon as he has his father's sanction, I will bestow upon my daughter. In the meantime, I will send down and see if a vessel can be chartered for Malta. Hearing Gascoigne fully admitted the wisdom of this measure and prepared for the departure. Indeed, now that Don Roberto's solution had been made known to our hero, he had more for obtaining his father's consent than he did for meaning to enjoy himself at Palermo. For early the next day all was ready, and the vessel had been procured. Jack took his leave of Agnes and her mother, and accompanied by Don Roberto and Don Philip, for Don Martin was on duty a few miles from Palermo, and went down to the beach. Having bid them farewell, embarked with Gascoigne and Messy on board of the two-masted lateen which had been engaged, and before sunset not a steeple of Palermo was to be seen. What are you thinking of, Jack? Said Gascoigne, after our hero had been silent half an hour. I've been thinking, Ned, but we are all well out of it. So do I, replied Gascoigne. Here the conversation dropped for a time. What do you think of now, Jack? Said Gascoigne after a long pause. I've been thinking of a good story for the old governor. Very true, replied Gascoigne. Both were again silent for some time. What do you think of now, Jack? Said Gascoigne after another long interval. I've been thinking that I shall leave the service, replied Jack. Wish you'd take me with you, replied Gascoigne with a sigh, and again they were both in deep contemplation. What do you think of now, Jack? Said Gascoigne. Of Agnes, replied our hero. Well, if that's the case, I'll call you when supper's ready. In the meantime, I'll go and talk with Mesty. Jack did the service in which he had no business and goes home to mind his own business. On the fourth day they arrived at Malton, our two midshipmen. As soon as they had served, so the padron of the vessel went up to the government house. They found the governor in the veranda, who held both his hands to each of them. Glad to see you, my lads. Well, Jack, how is the leg? All right. Don't limp. And your arm, Gascoigne. All right, sir, as sound as ever, replied they both. Then you're in luck and have made more haste than you deserve after your mad pranks. But now sit down, and I suppose, my friend Jack, you have a story to tell me. Oh, yes, Sir Thomas, and a very long one. They won't have it now, for expect people in business will have it after dinner. Get your things up and take possession of your rooms. The Aurora sailed 4 days ago. You've had a wonderful recovery. Wonderful, sir, replied our hero. All Palermo rings with it. Well, you may go now. I shall see you at dinner. Wilson will be delighted when he hears that you have got round again, for he was low-spirited about it, I can tell you, which is more than you deserve. He's right there, said our hero to Gascoigne as they walked away. When dinner was over, Jack narrated to the governor the adventures of Mesty, with which he was much interested, but then they were quite alone in the evening. The governor called out our two midshipmen in the veranda and said, Now, my lads, I'm not going to preach, as the saying is, but I've been long enough in the world to know that a compound fracture of the leg is not cured in 14 or 16 days. I ask you to tell me the truth. Did you not deceive Captain Wilson on this point? I am ashamed to say that we did, sir, replied Easy. How did you manage that, and why? Jack then went into further details relative to himself and his amour, stating his wish to be left behind and all that had passed. Well, here's some excuse for you, but none for the surgeons. If any surgeon here had played such a trick, I would have hung him. As sure as I'm governor. This affair of yours has become serious, Mr. Easy. We must have some conversation on the matter tomorrow morning. This morning the packet was reported off the harbour's mouth. After breakfast the letters were brought on shore, and the governor sent for a hero. So here are 2 letters for you. I'm sorry to say with black seals. I trust did not bring the intelligence of the death of any very near relative. Jack bowed without speaking to the letters and went to his room. The first he opened was from his father. My dear John, you'll be much grieved to hear that your poor mother, after sitting in the corner for nearly 2 years waiting for the millennium, appeared to pine away. Whether from disappointment or not, I do not know, but at last, in spite of all Dr. Middleton could do, she departed from this life. The millennium would not come to her as she expected. It is to be hoped she's gone to the millennium. She was a good wife, and I always let her have her own way. Middleton does not appear to be satisfied as the cause of her death, and has wished to be examined, but I say no. For I am a philosopher, and it is no use looking for causes after effects, but I have done since her death what she never would permit me to do during her life. I've had her head shaved and examined it very carefully as a phrenologist, and most curiously has she proved the truth of sublime science. I will give you the result. Determination very prominent, benevolence small, caution extreme, veneration not very great. Philoprogenitiveness, strange to say, is very large, considering that she has but one child. Imagine very strong, you know, my dear boy. She has always imagined some nonsense or another. Her other organs were all moderate. Poor dear creature, she is gone, and we well will, for a better mother or a better wife never existed. Now, my dear boy, I must request that you call for your discharge and come home as soon as possible. I cannot exist without you. I require your assistance in the grand work I have in contemplation. The time is at hand. The cause of equality will soon triumph. The average slaves now hold up their heads. The lectured them with my speeches, but I'm getting old and feeble. I require my son to leave my mantle to, as one prophet did to another, and then it will like him ascend in glory. Your affectionate father, Nicodemus Easy. This would appear, thought Jack, that my mother is dead and that my father is mad. For some time our hero remained in a melancholy mood. He dropped many tears to the memory of his mother. He had never expected he had much loved, and it was not till half an hour had elapsed that he thought of opening the other letter. It was from Dr. Middleton. My dear boy, though not a correspondent of yours, I take the right of having watched you through all your childhood. But knowledge of disposition to write you a few lines. You have by this time discarded your father's foolish, nonsensical philosophy, I am very sure. It was I advised your going away for that purpose. I am sure that as a young man of sense and the hero to a large property, you will before this have seen the fallacy of your father's doctrines. Father tells me that he has requested you to come home, and allow me to add any weight I may have with you in persuading you to do the same. Fortunately for you, the estate is entailed, you might soon be a beggar, for there is no saying what debts he might in his madness be guilty of. He is already dismissed from the magistracy by the Lord Lieutenant, in consequence of his haranguing the discontented peasantry, and may say exciting to acts of violence and subordination. He has been seen dancing and haranguing around a stack fired by an incendiary. He has turned away his keepers and allowed all poachers to go over the manor. In short, he is not in a sense, and although I am far from advising coercive measures, I do consider that it is absolutely necessary to immediately return home, and look after what will one day be your property. You have no occasion to fall to the profession with £8,000 per annum. You distinguish yourself now, make room for those who require it for the subsistence. God bless you. I shall soon hope to shake hands with you. Most truly, J. Middleton. There is matter for deep reflection in these 2 letters, and Jack never felt before how much his father had been in the wrong. The gradually been weaned from his ideas was true, but still he had to a certain degree clung to them, as we do to a habit. And now he felt that his eyes were opened to the silly, almost unfeeling letter of his father. Upon the occasion of his mother's death, opened his eyes. For a long while Jack was in melancholy meditation, and then casting his eyes upon his watch, he perceived that it was almost dinner time. They could eat his dinner with certainty, or scorn to pretend to feeling he did not. He therefore dressed himself and went down, grave it is true, but not in tears. He spoke little at dinner or tired as soon as it was over, presenting his 2 letters to the governor and asking his advice for the next morning. Gascoyne followed him to him. He confided his trouble, and Ned, finding that Jack was very low-spirited, consoled him to the best of his power, and brought a bottle of wine that procured from the butler. Before they returned to bed, Jack had given his ideas to his friend, which were approved of, and wishing him a good night, he threw himself into bed and was soon fast asleep. One thing is certain, my good fellow, observed the governor to our hero. He gave him back his letters at the breakfast table the next morning. Their father is mad as a March hare. I agree with that doctor who appears a sensible man, that you'd better go home immediately, and leave the service altogether, sir, replied Jack. I must say that I do not think you exactly fitted for it. I shall be sorry to lose you, as you have a wonderful talent for adventure. I shall have no more yarns to hear when you return, but if I understand right from Captain Wilson, you were brought into the profession because he thought that service might be of use in eradicating false notions, rather than for any intention or necessity of your following it up as a profession. I suspect that was the case, sir, replied Jack. As for my own part, I hardly know why I entered it. To find a mare's nest, lad, I've heard all about it, but never mind that. The question is now about your leaving it, to look after your own property, and I think I may venture to say that I can arrange all that matter at once. Though referring to Admiral or Captain will be responsible for you, and you may go home in the packet which sails on Wednesday for England. Thank you, Sir Thomas. I am much obliged to you, replied Jack. You, Gascoyne, shall, of course, send out for the first opportunity to rejoin your ship. Thank you, Sir Thomas. I am much obliged to you, replied Gascoyne, making a bow. You'll break no more arms, if you please, sir, continued the governor. A man in love may have some excuse in breaking his leg, but we had none. I beg your pardon, sir. Mr. Easy was warned in breaking his leg out of love. I submit that I could do no more than break my arm out of friendship. Hold your tongue, sir. I'll break your head from the very opposite feeling, replied the governor good-humouredly. But observe, young man, I shall keep this affair secret and honour bound, but let me advise you, as you have only a professional look to if you follow it up steadily. It is high time that you and Mr. Easy were separated. He is independent of the service, and you are not. A young man possessing such ample means and will never be fit for the duties of a junior officer. He can do no good for himself and is certain to do much harm to others. A continuance of the friendship would probably end in your ruin, Mr. Gascoyne. Must be aware that if the greatest indulgence had not been shown to Mr. Easy by his captain's first lieutenant, he never should have remained in the service so long as he has done. As the governor made the last remark, a rather severe tone, two midshipmen were silent for a moment. At last Jack observed very quietly, "And yes, sir, I think, considering all, I have behaved pretty well. You behave very well, my good lad, on all occasions in which for courage and conduct as an officer have been called forth. Admitting you have been sent to sea with a mind properly regulated and without such an unlimited command of money, I have no doubt but that you would provide an ornament to the service. Even now I think you would if you were to remain in the service under proper guidance and necessary restrictions, for you have at least learnt to obey, which is absolutely necessary before you are fit to command. Recollect what your conduct would have been brought upon you if you had not been under the parental care of Captain Wilson. Let us say no more about that. A prime midshipman with a prospect of £8,000 a year as an anomaly with the service cannot admit. Such a midshipman is resolved to take himself a wife. I hope that you approve of that, sir. That entirely depends upon the merit of the party, which I know nothing of, except that she has a pretty face and is one of the best Sicilian families. I think the difference of religion a ground of objection. We'll argue that point, sir, replied Jack. Perhaps it'll be the cause of more argument than you think, for Mr. Easy. Every man makes his own bed, and as he makes it, so must he lie down in it. What do I do about Messi, sir? I cannot bear the idea of parting with him. I am afraid that you must. I cannot well interfere there. He is a little used to the service. He has been sent to sick quarters as my servant, and if he may be permitted to go home with me, I will procure his discharge as soon as I arrive, and send him on board the guardship till I obtain it. Then the whole is well out of the service as in it, and therefore I will go on consideration take upon myself the responsibility, provided you do as you say. The conversation was here ended, as the governor had business to send men to, and Jack and Gascoyne went to the rooms to make their arrangements. The governor is right, observed Gascoyne. It is better that we part, Jack. You have half unfitted me for the service already. I have discussed the midshipman's berth. The very smell of pitch and tar has become odious to me. This is all wrong. I must forget you and all our pleasant cruises on shore, and once more swelter my greasy jacket. I think that if our pretended accidents were discovered, I should be dismissed of the service, and the misery which would cause my poor father tremble at my escape. The governor is right, Jack. We must part, but I hope you will never forget me. My hand upon it, Jack. Commend my interest, if ever I have any, my money, what I have, and the house, whether it belongs to me or my father. As far as you're concerned at last, I adhere to my notions of perfect equality, and assure them I trust Jack as a universal principle. It is the governor's trust that my father's mad as a March hare. That's sufficient. You don't know how glad it makes me to hear you say that. The two friends are inseparable during the short time that they've remained together. They talked of their future prospects, their hopes and anticipations, and when the conversation flagged, Gascoyne brought up the name of Agnes. Mess's delight at he leaving the service and going home with his patron was indescribable. He laid out a portion of his gold in a suit of plain clothes, white linen shirts, in the very respect the wardrobe of a man of fashion. In fact, he was now a complete gentleman's gentleman, was very particular in frizzing his woolly hair. He wore a white neckcloth, gloves, and cane. Everyone felt inclined to laugh when he made his appearance, but there was something in Messy's look which at all events prevented their doing so before his face. The day for sailing arrived. Jack took leave of the governor, thanking him for his greatest kindness, and stating his intention of taking Malta his way out to Palermo in a month or two. Gascoyne went on board with him and did not go down the vessel's side till it was more than a mile out of the harbour. Macy's wonderful invention, fully explained by himself, much to the dissatisfaction of our hero, is to be presumed to be that also of the reader. At last the packet anchored in Falmouth Roads. Jack, accompanied by Massey, was soon on shore with his luggage, threw himself into the mail, arrived in London, waiting 2 or 3 days to obtain what he considered necessary. By fashionable tailor ordered a chaise to Forest Hill. He had not written to his father to announce his arrival, and it was late in the morning when the chaise drew up at his father's door. Jack stood out and rang the bell. The servants who opened the door did not know him. They were not the same as those he left. "Where is Mr. Easy?" demanded Jack. "Who are you?" replied one of the men in a gruff tone. "By the powers, you'll very soon find out who he is," observed Massey. "Stay here, and I'll see if he is at home." "Just stay in the hall like a footman. What do you mean, you rascal?" cried Jack, attempting to push by the man. "That won't do here, master. This is a quality hall. One man's as good as another." "Not always," replied Jack, knocking him down. "Take that as for your insolence. Pack up your traps and walk out of the house tomorrow morning." Massey in the meantime had seized the other by the throat. "What do I with this fellow, Master Easy?" "Leave him now, Massey. We'll settle their account tomorrow morning. I presume I shall find my father in the library." "His father's one," of the man to the other. "He's not exactly chip off the old block." "Ship a change, I expect," replied the other as they walked away. "Massey," cried Jack in an authoritative tone, "bring those 2 rascals back to the luggage of the chaise. Pay the postilion and tell the housekeeper to show you my room and yours. Come to me for orders as soon as you have done this." "Yes," replied Jessie. "Now come here, you dashed blackguard, and take things out of the chaise. By the holy poker, I'll choke your luff, both of you." The faculty of the savage look and determined Massey had this to effect. The men solemnly returned and unloaded the chaise. Then Jack walked into his father's study. His father was there. The study was lighted up with the argon lamps, and Jack looked up with astonishment. Mr. Easy was busy with a plaster cast of a human head, which he pored over, so that he did not perceive the entrance of his son. The cast of the skull was divided in many compartments, with writing on each. But what most astonished her was the alteration of the apartment. Bookcases and books had all been removed. In the central substance of the ceiling was an apparatus which had puzzled anyone, composed of rods in every direction. Choosing the end of them, also tubes in equal number, one of which communicated with a large air pump which stood on a table. Jack took a short survey, then walked up to his father and accosted him. "What is it, Mr. Easy? Is it possible?" "Yes, it is my old son, Jack." "I am glad to see you, John. Very glad indeed," continued the old gentleman, shaking him both hands. "Very glad you've come home. I wanted you. I wanted your assistance in my great and glorious project, which, thank heaven, is now advancing rapidly. Very soon shall equality and the rights of man be claimed everywhere. The pressure from without is enormous, and the bulwarks of an enormous, ridiculous, and tyrannical constitution must give way. King, lords, aristocrats, landholders, tithe collectors, church and state, thank God, will soon be overthrown, and the golden age revived. The millennium, the true millennium, not what your poor mother talked about. I am at the head of 29 societies, and my health lasts, Jack. You will see what I've accomplished now that I have your assistance, Jack." His easy eyes sparkled and flashed out the brilliancy of the incipient insanity. Jack started to turn the conversation. He observed, "You have made a great change in this room, sir. What may all this be for? Is it a machine to improve equality and the rights of man?" "My dear son," replied Mr. Easy, sitting down and crossing his legs complacently with his 2 hands under his right thigh, according to his usual custom, very much pleased with himself. "Why, my dear son, that is not exactly the case, and yet you have shown some degree of perception, even in your guess. My invention succeeds, and I have no doubt of it. I shall discover the great art of rectifying the mistakes of nature, giving equality of organization to the whole species, of introducing all the finer organs of humanity, and destroying the baser. A splendid invention, Jack, very splendid. They may talk of Kull and Spurzheim and all those, but what have they done? Nothing but divided the brain into sections, classified the organs, and discovered where they reside. But what good result has been obtained from that? The murderer by nature ordained a murderer, the benevolent man a benevolent man. He can all alter his organization. I have found out how to change all that. Surely, sir, you would not interfere with the organs of benevolence. But indeed I must, Jack. I myself am suffering my organ of benevolence being too large. I must reduce it. Then I shall be capable of greater things, shall not be terrified by difficulties, shall overlook trifles, and only carry on great schemes for universal equality. Supreme rights of man. I put myself in that machine every morning for 2 hours these last few months, and I feel now that I'm daily losing a great portion. Will you do me the favor to explain an intervention so extraordinary, sir?" said our hero. "Most willing, my boy. You observe in the center there is a frame to confine the human head, somewhat larger than the head itself, and the head rests upon the iron collar beneath. And the head is thus firmly fixed. Suppose I want to reduce the size of my particular organ. I take the boss corresponding to where that organ is situated in the cranium and fix it on. For you will observe that all the bosses inside of the top of the frame correspond to the organs as described in this plaster cast on the table. And then screw down pretty tight and increase the pressure daily until the organ disappears together. It is reduced to the raw size required." "Remember that part perfectly, sir," replied Jack. "But now explain to me by what method you contrive to raise an organ which does not previously exist." "That," replied Mr. Easy, "is the greatest perfection of the whole invention. For without I could do that, I should have done little. I feel convinced that this invention of mine will immortalize me. Observe all these little bell glasses which communicate with the ear pump. I shave my patient's head, grease a little, and fix on the bell glass. Exactly shaped to fit the organ in length and breadth. I work the ear pump and raise the organ by an exhausted receiver. It cannot fail. There is my butler. Now, a man who escaped hanging last spring assizes on an undoubted charge of murder. I selected on purpose. I flattened down murder to nothing, and have raised benevolence till it's like a wind. I'm afraid my poor father's head is an exhausted receiver," thought Jack, who then replied, "Well, sir, if it succeeds, it will be a good invention." "Succeeds? Why, it has succeeded. It cannot fail. It has cost me nearly £2,000. By the by, Jack, you have drawn very liberally lately, and I've had some trouble with my own expenses to meet your bills. Not that I complain, but what society is my machine, and tenants refusing to pay the rents. The principal of the farms are no more mine than theirs, which I admit to be true. I have had some difficulty in meeting all demands. The governor's right, thought Jack, who now inquired after Dr. Middleton. Ah, poor silly man, he's alive yet. I believe doing well. He is one who will interfere with the business of others, complains of my servants. Very silly man indeed, but I let him have his own way. So did your poor mother. Silly woman, Mr. Easy, but never mind that. If you please, sir, I have also a complaint to make of the servants for the insolence to me, but will adjourn if you please, as I wish to have some refreshment. So, Jack, if you're hungry, I will go with you. Complain of my servants, say you. There must be some mistake. They are all shaved and wear wigs, and I put them in the machine every other morning. I mean to take an alteration in one respect. You observe, Jack, it requires more dignity. Must raise the whole machinery some feet, ascend it with state as a throne. The state of reason, the victory of mind over nature. As you please, sir, but I am really hungry just now. Jack and his father went to the drawing room and rang the bell. Being answered, Jack rose and rang again. My dear sir, observed Mr. Easy, you must not be in a hurry. Every man naturally provides for his own wants first, as for those of others. Now my servants are a set of insolent scoundrels, certain insolence I never permit. I knocked one down as I entered your house, and with your permission I shall discharge two at least tomorrow. My dear son, exclaimed Mr. Easy, you knocked my servants down. Are you not aware by the laws of equality? I am aware of this, my dear father, replied Jack. By all the laws of society, we have a right to expect civility and obedience from those who pay and feed. Pay and feed, my dear son, my dear Jack, you must recollect. Let's serve very well, but if your servants do not come to this recollection in a very short time, either I or they must quit the house. My dear boy, have you forgotten the principles I instilled into you? Do you not go to sea to obtain that equality foiled by tyranny, despotism here on shore? You not acknowledge and support my philosophy. Well, we'll argue that point tomorrow, sir. At present I want to obtain my supper, and Jack bellowed the bell furiously. Father made his appearance at last summons, and he was followed by Messi, who looked like a demon with anger. Mercy on me, whom have we here? My servant, father, plain Jack, starting up, one that I can trust to and will obey me. Messi, I wish some supper and wine to be brought immediately. See that scoundrel gets it ready in a moment. Do not throw him out the door and lock him out. You understand me? Yes, master, replied Misty. Now you have supper very quick, or Messi know the reason why. Wait, sir, cried Messi in an imperative tone. The butler, quick, sir, by the holy poker, show you what Messi can do, and Messi grinned in his wrath. Bring supper and wine immediately, said Mr. Easy, giving an order since the butler had never heard of since he had been in the house. The butler quit the room and followed by the shanty. My dear boy, my Jack, I can make every allowance for hunger. It is often the cause of theft and crime in the present unnatural state of society. But really, yours too violent. The principles. Your principles are all confounded nonsense, father, cried Jack in a rage. What, Jack, my son, what do I hear? This is new nonsense. Why, Jack, what has Captain Wilson been doing with you? Bringing me to my senses, sir. Oh dear, my dear Jack, it will certainly make me lose mine. Gone already, thought Jack. That you, my child, so carefully brought up in the great and glorious school of philosophy, should behave this way, should be so violent, get your sublime philosophy, and all just like Esau. Selling your birthright for a mess of pottage. Oh, Jack, you'll kill me, and yet I love you, Jack. Well, whom else have I to love in this world? Never mind, we'll argue the point, my boy. I'll convince you in a week all will be right again. It shall, sir, if I can manage it, replied Jack. That's right, my love. I love to hear you say so. That's consoling, very consoling, but I think I was wrong to let you go to sea, Jack. Indeed, you were not, father. Glad to hear you say so. I thought they'd ruined you, destroyed all your philosophy, but it'll be all right again. You shall come to our societies, Jack. I'm president. You hear me speak, Jack. You'll hear me thunder like Demosthenes, but here comes the tray. The butler, followed by Messi, who attended him as if he was his prisoner, now made his appearance. With the tray, laid it down in a sulky manner and retired. Jack desired Messi to remain. How are they getting on in the servants' hall? Regular mutiny, sir. They swear they stand no more our nonsense, and that they both leave the house tomorrow. Dear sir, your servants declare that they shall leave your house tomorrow. You leave my house, Jack, after 4 years' absence? No, I'll rest easy with them. I'll make them a speech. You know how I can speak, Jack. Look, you, father, I cannot stand this. Either you give me a carte blanche to arrange the household as I please, or I shall quit it myself tomorrow morning. Master Jack, no. Shake hands and make friends with them. Be civil, and they will serve you. You know I'm upon the principles. Principles of the devil, cried Jack in a rage. Oh, the devil. Jack, dear me, I wish you had never gone to sea. In one word, sir, do you consent, or am I to leave the house? Leave the house, or no, not leave the house, Jack. I have no son but you. Then do as you please. You must not send away my murderer. For I must have him cured, and shown as a proof of my wonderful invention. Messi, get my pistols ready for tomorrow morning. Your own, too. Do you hear? Right, master, replied Messi. I think that right. Right, pistols, Jack. What do you mean? It is possible that you may or may not have quite cured your murder, and therefore it is well to be prepared. I will now wish you good night, but before I go, you will be pleased to summon one of the servants, and may inform the others the household is under my control for the future. The bell was again rung, and was this time answered with more expedition. Directed the servant in the presence of his father that with the consent of the latter he would thereafter take the whole control of the establishment. Messi put the major domo from whom they would receive their orders. The man stared and cast an appealing look to Mr. Easy, who hesitated and at last said, Well, yes, you'll apologize to all that I have made the arrangement. You apologize to none, sir, cried Jack, but tell them all that I will arrange the whole business tomorrow morning. Tell them to come here and show me my bedroom. Messi, get your supper and then come up to me, and if they dare to refuse you, recollect who does, and point them out tomorrow morning. That will do, sir. Away with you, and bring flat candlesticks. Which Jack takes up the other side of the argument, and proves that he can argue as well on one side as the other. The scene gives some idea of the state of Mr. Easy's household upon our hero's arrival. The poor lunatic, for such we must call him, was at the mercy of his servants, who was robbed, laughed at, and neglected him. The waste and expense are enormous. Our hero found how matters stood, went to bed, and lay the best part of the night resolving what to do. To send for Dr. Middleton and consult him. The next morning Jack rose early. Messi was in the room with warm water as soon as he rang. By the power, Master Easy, your father, a very silly old man, but I am afraid so, replied Jack. He not right here, observed Messie, putting his fingers to his head. Jack sighed and desired Messie to send one of the grooms up to the door. When the man knocked, he desired him to mount a horse and ride over Dr. Middleton and request his immediate attendance. But was really a good servant, replied, yes, sir, very respectfully, and hastened away. Jack went down to breakfast and found all ready, but his father was not in the room. He went to his study and found it occupied with the carpenter. Making a sort of a frame as a model of the platform or dais, to be raised into the wonderful invention. You see, he was so busy he could not come to breakfast, so Jack took us alone. An hour after this, Dr. Middleton's carriage drove up to the door. Dr. Harley greeted our hero. My dear sir, for so I suppose you must now call you, I am heartily glad that you have returned. I can assure you that it is not a moment too soon. Found that already, doctor, replied Jack. Sir, sit down. Have you breakfasted? No, I have not. For I was anxious to see you, and I ordered my carriage at once. Then sit down, doctor, and we will talk over matters quietly. You of course perceive the state of your father. He has been some time quite unfit to manage his own affairs. So I'm afraid. What do you intend to do, then? To put them in the fans trustees? Be to say for myself, Dr. Middleton, I could not do the other without submitting my poor father to process and confinement, which I cannot think of. Sure, there are not many in Bedlam worse than he is, but I perfectly agree with you. That is, he will consent to your taking charge of the property. Power of return will be all that is requisite, replied Jack. That is, as soon as I can rid the house of the set of miscreants who are in it, and who are now in open mutiny. Think by the doctor that you will have some trouble. You know the character of the butler. From my father's own mouth, I really should take it as a favor, Dr. Middleton, if you could stay here a day or two. I know that you have retired from practice. Would have made the same offer, my young friend. I will come here with two of my servants, for you must discharge these. I have one of my own who is worth his weight in gold. That will be sufficient. I will dismiss every man you think I ought, and as for the woman, we can give them warning or place them at leisure. Exactly what I should propose, replied the doctor. I will now go, if you please, procure the assistance of a couple of constables, and also your father's former legal adviser, who will prepare a power of attorney. Yes, replied Jack, you must find them out the attendants who refuse to pay upon the principle of equality, and we shall serve them with notice immediately. Rest, my dear young friend, I see that your father's notion has not taken root. They lasted some time, nevertheless, doctor, replied Jack, laughing. Then I will only quit you for an hour or two, and then, as you will wish it, I will take up my quarters here as long as you find me useful. The former Dr. Middleton made his appearance, accompanied by Mr. Hanson, the solicitor, bringing with him his portmanteau and his servants. Mr. Easy came into the parlour and was at breakfast when they entered. He received them very coolly, but a little judicious praise of the wonderful invention had its due effect. But Jack reminded him of his promise that in future he was to control the household. He was easily persuaded to sign the order for so doing. The power of attorney. Mr. Easy also gave up to Jack the key of his executor. Mr. Hanson possessed himself of his books, papers, and receipts necessary to ascertain the state of his affairs, and the rents which had not even paid up. Meantime, the constables arrived. The servants were all summoned. Mr. Hanson showed them the power of the attorney, empowering Jack to act for his father. Less than half an hour afterwards, all the men servants but two grooms were dismissed. The presence of the constables and Messie presented resistance, not without various threats on the part of the butler, whose name was O'Rourke. In 24 hours, Jack had made a reformation of the household. Messie took no notion of anything, returned to his study and his wonderful invention. Messie received the keys of the cellar and had now complete control over those who remained. Middleton, Mr. Hanson, Mr. Easy, and Jack sat down to dinner, and everything wore the appearance of order and comfort. Messie ate very hearty, but said nothing till after dinner, which was his usual custom. He commenced writing upon the truth and soundness of his philosophy. By the by, my dear son, if I recollect right, you told me last night that you were no longer of my opinion. Now, if you please, you'll argue the point. I argue the point with all my heart, sir, replied Jack. Will you begin? Let's fill our glasses, replied Mr. Easy triumphantly. Let's fill our glasses, and then I will bring Jack back to the proper way of thinking. My son, I trust you will not deny that we are all born equal. I do deny it, sir, replied Jack. I deny it in toto. Deny it from the evidence of our own senses and from the authority of Scripture. But all men were born equal, is to suppose they are equally endowed with the same strength and with the same capacity of mind, which we know is not the case. I deny it from Scripture. I will quote many passages, but I will restrict myself to one, the parable of the talents. The one I gave 5 talents, another about 1, holding them responsible for the trust reposed in them. We are all intended to fill various stations of society, provided by heaven accordingly. That may be replied, Mr. Easy, but that does not prove that the earth was not intended to be equally distributed among all alike. I beg your pardon. Proof that that was not the intention of Providence is that the equality allowing to be put into practice could never be maintained. Now, my dear, no, because the strong oppresses the weak. Tyrants rise up and conquer. Men combine to do wrong. Not so, my dear father. I say it could not be maintained without the organization of each individual has been equalized and several other points established. Since allowing that every man had ab origins a certain portion of ground, he who was the strongest or the cleverest would soon cause us to yield more than others would, and thus equality be destroyed. Again, if one couple had 10 children, another had none, then again would equality be broken upon, as a land that supports 2 in one instance would have to feed 12 in the other. Perceive, therefore, that without rapine or injustice, your equality could not be preserved. But Jack alone there might be some diversity from such causes. There would be such a very different thing from the present monstrous state of society, in which we have kings and lords, people rolling in wealth, while others are in the state of pauperism and obliged to steal for their daily bread. My dear father, consider that it is this inequality that society owes its firmest cementation. The enabled to live in peace and happiness, protected by just laws, each doing his duty in that state of life to which he is called, rise above or sinking in the society, according as he has been entrusted with the 5 talents of the one. Equality can and does exist nowhere. We are told that it does not exist in heaven itself, but how can it exist upon earth? That is only asserted, Jack, and is not proof that it ought not to exist. Let us argue the point, Father, coolly. Examine a little what would be the effect if all was equality. We are all equal in beauty, there would be no beauty, for beauty is only by comparison. Were all equal in strength, conflicts would be interminable. Were all equal in rank and power and possessions, the greatest charms of existence would be destroyed. Generosity, gratitude, and half the finer virtues would be unknown. First principle of religion, charity, should not be practiced. Pity would never be called forth. Benevolence, your great organ, would be useless, and self-denial a blank letter. Were all equal in ability, there would be no instruction, no talent, no genius, nothing to admire, nothing to copy, to respect, nothing to rouse emulation or stimulate to praiseworthy ambition. Well, my dear father, what an idle, unprofitable, weary world would this be if it were based on equality? But allowing all that, Jack, replied Mr. Easy, well, say you argue well on a bad cause. Why should the inequality be carried so far? King and lords, for instance. The most lasting and imperishable form of building is that of the pyramid, which defies age. And to that some may the first perfect form of society be compared. It is based upon the many, and rising by degrees, it becomes less as wealth, talent, and rank increase in the individual. The density of apex or monarch above all. Yet each several stone from the apex to the base is necessary for the preservation of the structure. Feels its duty to us allotted place. Could you prove that those at the summit possess the greatest share of happiness in this world? When indeed you have a position to argue on, but it is well known that such is not the case, provided he have a contented mind. The peasant is more happy than the king, and surrounded as the latter is by cares and anxiety. Very well argued indeed, my dear boy, observed Dr. Middleton. But, my dear boy, there is other states of society than monarchy. We have republics and despotisms. We have, but how long did the last compare to the first? The cycle in this changes which never varies. A monarch may be overthrown by a revolution, and republicanism succeed, but that is shortly followed by despotism. Till after time monarchy succeeds, again by unanimous consent, as the most legitimate and equitable form of government. But in none of these do you find a single advance of equality. In a republic, those who govern are more powerful than the rulers in a restricted monarchy. A president is greater than a king, and next to a despot whose will is law. Even in a small society, you find that some will naturally take the lead and assume domination. Commence the system of school when we are first thrown in society. And they were taught...
I can't journal when you're reading.
Well, then start packing your clothes.
I don't have my thing to pack them in.
Well, you can get out what you want.
I can't focus if you haven't eaten yet.
There are systems of petty tyranny. There are some few points in which we obtain equality in the world, and that equality can only be obtained in a well-regulated form of society. It is an equal administration of justice and of laws to which you have agreed to submit for the benefit of the whole. The equal right to live and not be permitted to starve, which has been obtained in this country. And when we are called to account, we shall have equal justice. Now, my dear father, you have my opinion. Yes, my dear, this is all very well in the outset, but how does it work? It works well. The luxury of the pampered state, the idleness, if you please, the wickedness of the rich, all contribute to the support, the comfort, and the employment of the poor. We behold extravagance, it is a vice, but that very extravagance circulates money, and the vice of one contributes to the absence of happiness of many. When the vice which is not redeemed by producing commensurate good is avarice. If all were equal, there would be no arts, no manufactures, no industry, no employment. As it is, the inequality of the distribution of wealth may be compared to the heart. Pour forth the blood like a steam engine through the human frame, the same blood returning from the extremities of the veins to be again propelled, and kept of a happy, healthy, and vigorous circulation. Robo Jack, said Dr. Middleton, have you anything to reply, sir? Addressing Mr. Easy. Reply, sir, replied Mr. Easy with scorn. Why, he has not given me half an argument yet. Why, that black servant even laughs at him. Look at him there, showing his teeth. Can he forget the horrors of slavery? Can forget the base, unfeeling lash? No, sir, he has suffered, and he can estimate the divine right of equality. Ask him now, ask him, if you dare, Jack, whether he will admit the truth of your argument. Well, I'll ask him, replied Jack. And until I can, lady has once been one of your disciples. Massey, what's your opinion of equality? Equality, master, replied Massey, pulling his cravat. I say in dash equality. Now I major domo. Ross deserves to be a slave all his life. True, I have been slave. I am but a prince in my own country. See how many skulls I have. Skulls. Do you know anything of the sublime science? Are you for knowledge? I know my skull very well in a shanty country anyhow. Then if you know that, you must be one. I have no idea that the science has extended so far. Maybe it has brought from thence. I will have some talk with you tomorrow. That's very curious, Dr. Middle, is it not? Very indeed, Mr. Easy. I shall feel his head tomorrow after breakfast. If there is anything wrong, I shall correct it with my machine. By the love, I have forgot. Gentlemen, you will excuse me, but I wish to see what the carpenter has done for me. I shall attend the meeting of the society, Jack. My boy, won't you come and hear my speech? Thank you, sir, but I cannot well leave your friends. Mr. Easy quit the room. Are you aware, my dear sir, that your father has opened his preserves to all the poachers, said Mr. Hanson. The devil he has. Yes, he has allowed several gangs of gypsies to locate themselves in his woods, and much the annoyance of the neighborhood, and who suffered from their depredations, continued Dr. Middleton. By the ceased in books that there is nearly 2 years' rental of the estate due. Some tenants have paid up in full, others not for 4 years. I reckon £14,000 still in arrear. Oblige me by making immediate steps, Mr. Hanson, for the recovery of the sums due. Most certainly, Mr. John. I trust your father will not commit himself tonight as he has done lately. When they rose to retire, Dr. Middleton took our hero by the hand. You do not know, my dear fellow, what pleasure it gives me to find that in spite of the doting of your mother and the madness of your father, you have turned out so well. It is very fortunate that you have come home. I trust you will now forgive the profession. I have given it up, sir. By the way, it reminds me that I have not replied for either my discharge or that of my servant, but I cannot spare time yet, so I shall not report myself. But your hero finds himself an orphan, resolves to go to sea again with the smallest idea of equality. Next morning, when they meet at breakfast, Mr. Easy does not make his appearance. And Jack inquired of Messi where he was. They say down below the old gentleman has not come home again. Did he not come home? To Dr. Middleton. This must be looked to. He's great rascal, that butler man, said Messi to Jack, but the old gentleman not sleep in his bed, that for sure. Make inquiries when he went out, said Jack. I had hoped no accident had occurred, replied Mr. Hanson, but his company has really been very strange. Nobody seen him go out last night, replied Messi. Very likely he's in his study, observed Dr. Middleton. He may have remained all night fast asleep by his wonderful invention. I'll go and see, replied Jack. Dr. Middleton accompanied and Messi followed. They opened the door, and they beheld a spectacle which made them recoil with horror. There was Mr. Easy with his head on the machine, the platform below fallen from under him. Hanged with soldiers touching the ground, Dr. Middleton hastened to him and, assisted by Messi and our hero, took him out of the steel collars around his neck. Life had been extinct for many hours, and examination was found the poor old gentleman's neck was dislocated. Surmised the accident must have taken place the evening before, and it was easy to account for it. Mr. Easy had the machine raised 4 feet higher for the platform, and steps to be placed underneath must mount on the frame mounted by the carpenter for his work. Had fixed his head, and for the knob was pressed in his bump of benevolence. The frame were courteously put together with the very short nails had given way with his weight, and the sudden fall had dislocated his neck. Mr. Hanson led away. Our hero was much shocked at this unfortunate and tragical end of his poor father, when Dr. Middleton ordered the body to be taken up into a bedroom. Immediately dispatched a messenger to the coroner of the country. Mr. Easy had told his son about the day before. They felt convinced that this wonderful invention would immortalize him, and so it had, although not exactly in the sense he had anticipated. Must pass with a few days of sore and closed shutters, which always are given to these scenes. The coroner's inquest and the funeral over, daylight was again admitted. Our hero's spirits revived, and he found himself in possession of the splendid property of his own master. He has not evaded his truth, for he wanted 9 months, but on opening the will of his father, found that Dr. Middleton was his sole guardian. Mr. Hanson, examining and conducting the papers, which were in the greatest confusion, discovered banknotes in different corners, and huddled up bills with receipts, the amount of £2,000 and further. Check signed by Captain Wilson on his banker, for the £1,000 advanced by Mr. Easy, dated more than 15 months back. Then wrote to the Admiralty informing that the family affairs necessary Mr. John Easy, who had been left at sick quarters, to leave his Majesty's service. Requesting his discharge went forthwith. The Admiralty were graciously pleased to grant the request and lose the service of a midshipman. They were also pleased to grant the discharge of Messi on the sum required for rep substitute being paid in. The Gypsies were routed out of their boats and sent once more to wander. The dainties were restored, the preserves cleared of all poachers, and the gentry of the country were not a little pleased at Jack's succession. The wish of Mr. Easy's neck had been broken long ago. The societies were resolved, since now that Mr. Easy no longer paid for the beer, nothing to meet for it. Cards and compliments were sent from all parts of the county, and everyone was anxious that our hero should come of age, as then he would be able to marry, to give dinners, subscribe to the Fox, and live as a gentleman ought to do. During all these speculations, Jack had made Dr. Middleton acquainted with the history of his amour with Agnes Ribera, and all particulars connected therewith. Also determined he should go to bring her him was his wife. Dr. Middleton saw no objection to the match, and he perceived that our hero was sincere. And Jack had made inquiries when the packet was safe for Malta. When Messi stood behind his chair, observed, bad vessel, Master, why not go in man of war? Very true, replied Jack, but you know, Master, that is not so easy. And then how come home, sir? Supposing Agnes taken prisoner and put in prison. Very true, replied Jack. That as for a passage home in a man of war, that will be more difficult still. Suppose you buy one fine vessel, plenty of guns, take out letter of marque, plenty of men, and bring Miss Agnes home like a lady, captain of your own ship. Deserves consideration, Messi, replied Jack, who thought of it during the night, and the next resolved to follow Messi's advice. The paper lay on the breakfast table. Jack took it up, and his eye was caught by mergement with the sail of the Joan of Arc. Prize to H.M. ship. Thetis, brigantine of 278 tons, copper bottomed, armed, and flutes with all their stores, spars, sails, running and standing, rigging, then flying in the harbor of Portsmouth. To take place on the following Wednesday. Jack rang the bell and ordered post horses. Where are you going, my dear boy? Inquired Dr. Middleton. To Portsmouth, doctor. And pray what for, if not an impertinent question? Giving Dr. Middleton insight into his plan, and requested he should be allowed to do so, as there was plenty of ready money. But the expense will be enormous. I will be heavy, sir, I grant, but I have calculated pretty nearly. Not spend the rate of more than my income. Besides his letter of marque, I shall have the right of capture. In fact, I mean to take out a privateer's regular license. To remain there and cruise, not on my own. I am too anxious to get home again. You must not refuse me, my dear guardian. As the lady is in the case, I will not, my dear boy. Be careful what you are about. Never fear, sir. I will be back in 4 months. At the farthest, but I must set off and certain if the vessel is the description given in the advertisement. Jack threw himself into the chariot. Messi mounted in the rumble, and in 2 hours there at Portsmouth, went to the agent and viewed the vessel, which proved to be a very fine, fast-sailing craft. Well found with 6 brass carronades on each side. The cabins were handsome, fitted up with bird's-eye maple and gilt mouldings. This will do, thought Jack. A couple of long brass nines, 40 men and 6 boys, and she will be just the thing we require. Messi Jack went on shore and returned to Forest Hill to dinner. When she retired, Mr. Hanson set off for Portsmouth and bid at the sale for the vessel, and he wished to purchase her. Monday, and on Wednesday, Mr. Hanson purchased her as she stood for £1,750, which is considered about half her value. Middleton had in the meantime been thinking very seriously of Jack's project. He could not see no objection to it, provided he was steady and prudent, but in both these qualities Jack had not exactly been tried. They were determined to look out for some steady naval lieutenant. Made a sign calling on that our hero should be accompanied by him, and that he should go out as a sailing master. Now the vessel was purchased, he informed Jack of his wish. Indeed, as Dr. Middleton preserved his duty as a guardian, demanded this precaution, and our hero, who felt very grateful to Dr. Middleton, immediately acquiesced. By the by, Doctor, see that he's a good navigator, for although I can find Janday's work pretty well, latterly been out of practice. Everyone was now busy, Jack and Messi at Portsmouth, fitting out the vessel and offering 3 guineas a head to the crimps for very good able seamen. Hanson obtaining his English register and the letters of license, and Dr. Middleton in search of a good naval duty dry nurse. Jack went on to write to Don Philip and Agnes, apprising them of the death of his father's intentions. In 6 weeks all was ready, and the brigantine, which had been taken out of British register and license in the name of the Ribera, went out of harbour and anchored at Spithead. Dr. Middleton procured at the thought a very fit person to sail with Jack, and our hero Messi embarked, wishing the doctor and solicitor goodbye, and leaving them at nothing to do but pay the bills. It was elected by Dr. Middleton by the advice of an old friend of his, a purser of the Navy who lived at Southsea, was a Lieutenant Oxbelly. The ship's company, which had collected, received our hero as their captain and the owner upon the arrival on board. So there was a small contest between our hero's active slight figure and handsome person, set off with a blue coat, something like the present yacht club uniform, and that of a second in command, who waddled in the side to receive him. He is a very short man with uncommon protuberance of stomach, with shoulders and arms too short for his body, and hands much too large, more like the paws of a polar bear than anything else. For trousers, shoes, and buckles, on his head was a foraging cap, which, when he took it off, showed that he was quite bald. His age might be about 55 or 60, complexion florid, no whiskers, and little beard, nose straight, lips thin, teeth black with chewing. There was a little brown dribble from the left corner of his mouth. There was a leak there, he said. Although his count was prepossessing, for his honest and manly, but his waist was preposterous. Steady enough, thought Jack, as he returned Mr. Oxbelly's salute. How do you do, sir, said Jack. I trust we shall be good shipmates. For Jack had not seen him before. He replied, Lieutenant, I never quarrel with anyone, except I won't tell a story with my wife. So you've ever been domestic dissensions, Mr. Oxbelly? And I only quarrel with her at night, sir. She will take it more than her share of the bed and won't allow me to sleep single. But never mind that, sir. Now will you please to muster the men, if you please, Mr. Oxbelly. The men were mustered, and Jack made his long speech upon subordination, discipline, activity, duty, and so forth. Very good speech, Mr. Easy, said Mr. Oxbelly, as the men went forward. I wish my wife had heard it. But, sir, if you please, we'll now get under way as fast as we can, for there's a Channel cruiser working up at St. Helens. Give them the go by running through the Needles. But what need we care for the Channel cruiser? Because as soon as she drops her anchor, she will come on board and take a fancy to at least 10 of our men, but they are protected. So that's no protection nowadays. I have sailed in a prisoner for at least 3 years, and I know they have no respect for letters of marque or for privateers. I believe you are right, Mr. Oxbelly, so if you please, we'll up with the anchor at once. The crew of the Bear had been well chosen. They were prime men of war's men, most of whom had deserted from the various ships in their station, and of course were most anxious to be off. The minute the Bear was under way, with all sail set below and aloft. She was in excellent trim and flew through the water. The wind was fair. By night she had passed through Portland Lights, and the next morning were steering a course for the Bay of Biscay. They had encountered what they feared more than an enemy. An English cruiser overhauled them. Things will do now, sir, observed Mr. Oxbelly to our hero. We have made a famous run. It's 12 o'clock, and if you please, I'll work the latitude. Let you know what it is. We must shape our course so as not to run in with a breast squadron. Little more westing, sir. I'll be up in 1 minute. My wife, but I'll tell you about that when I come up. Latitude 41 degrees, 12 minutes, sir. I was about to say that my wife, when she was on board of the privateer, what I commanded. Board of the privateer, Mr. Oxbelly. Yes, sir, where to go. Told her it was impossible. She wouldn't listen to reason. Came on board, flopped down into the standing bed place, and said that she was there for the cruise, little Billy with her. What's your child too? Yes, sir, 2 years old. Fine boy. Always laughed when the guns replied. While his mother stood in the ladder and held him on top of the booby hatch. I wonder what Mrs. Oxbelly let you come here now. So you would think, said sir, but I'll explain that. She thinks I'm in London about my half-pay. She knows all the time and frets don't double. That will make her thin, and then there will be more room in the bed. Mrs. Oxbelly is a very stout woman. Why, you're not a little man. No, not little, tending to be lusty, as the saying is. That is in good condition. It's very strange Miss Oxbelly has an idea that she is not large. I cannot persuade her to it. That's the reason we always spat in bed. She says it is I, and I know that it is she who takes the largest share of it. Perhaps you may both be right. No, it is she who creates all the disturbance. If I get nearer to the wall, she jams me up till I'm as thin as a thread paper. Put her inside and stay out, she cuts me out as you do a cast by the chime, till I tumble out of bed. Why do you make your bed larger, Mr. Oxbelly? Sir, I propose it, but my life will have it. The bed is large enough if I do not toss my sleep. I can't convince her. She'll have it all to herself. No, I slept well last night for the first time since I left the Boadicea. Boadicea, yes, sir, I was a second lieutenant of the Boadicea for 3 years. She's a fine frigate, I'm told. Look, I said a pinched up little craft before I never saw it. Why, Mr. Easy could hardly get at the door of my cabin, and yet, as you must see, I'm not a large man. Good heavens, is it possible, thought Jack. The man does not really know it is monstrous. If such was the case, Mr. Oxbelly had no idea that he was otherwise in good condition, although he had probably not seen his knees for years. It was obesity that was his great objection to him, and for every other point there's nothing against him. He had, upon one pretense and another, been shifted by the manoeuvres of the captains out of different ships until he went to the Admiralty to know if there was any charge against him. First Lord at once perceived the change to be preferred, and made a mark against his name as not fit for anything but harbour duty. Out of employment he had taken the command of a private steer cutter. When his wife was excessively fond, what, as he said, fall in with little Billy. He was sober, steady, knew his duty well, but he weighed 26 stone, and his weight had swamped him in the service. He was too long indulged to become, as Shakespeare says, the father of his thoughts, and he really at last brought himself to think that he was not by any means what he considered a fat man. His wife, as he said, was also a very stout one, and this exuberance of flesh on both sides was only but continual ground of dispute. Mr. Hero was usually guessed in the very middle of it. The 11th day the Ribera entered the Straits, and the rock of Gibraltar was in sight as the sun went down, after which the wind fell light, and about midnight it became calm, and they drifted up. Sailors were roused by the report of heavy guns, and perceived an English frigate about 8 miles further up the Straits, and moored in the mid-channel, engaging 9 or 10 Spanish gunboats, which had come out from Algeciras to attack her. It is still considered dead calm, and the boats of the frigate were all ahead towing her, and is to bring her broadside to bear upon the Spanish flotilla. Reverberating a heavy cannon on both sides over the placid surface of the water, the white smoke ascending to the sun rose in brilliancy in a clear blue sky. The distant echoes repeated from the high hills, but it had a very beautiful effect for those who were partial to the picturesque. But Jack thought it advisable to prepare for action instead of watching for tints, and in a short time all was ready. They'll not come to us, Mr. Easy, as long as we have the frigate to hammer at, but still we had better be prepared, for we cannot well pass them without having a few shot. When I came up the Straits, the privateer were attacked by 2 and fought them for 3 hours. Their shot passed the water over our decks till they were wet, fore and aft, but somehow or another they never hit us. We were as low as they were. We bombed by the full of the frigate, though. Mrs. Oxbill and Billy were on deck the whole time, and Billy was quite delighted and cried when they took him down to breakfast. Mrs. Oxbill must be very courageous. Cares neither for shot nor shell, sir. Laughs when they whiz over her head, and tells Billy to hark. Sir is not surprising. Her father's a major, and her 2 brothers are lieutenants in the bombardiers. That indeed, replied Jack. We see there is a breeze springing up from the westward. Very true, Mr. Easy, and a steady one it will be, for it comes up dark and slow, so much the better for the frigate, for she'll get little honour and plenty of mauling at this work. But we'll take it up with us, repeated Jack. How far do you reckon the gunboats from the shore? I should think about 5 miles, or rather less. Trim sails, Mr. Oxby. Perhaps we may cut 1 or 2 of these off steer in shore of them. Up here, my lads. Top gallant studding sails, topmast studdings in hand. Rig out the booms. Keep as you go now, my lads. We shall be well in shore of them, and out of the range of the batteries. The breeze came down fresh, and all set sail upon the Ribera. She took the wind down with her, and passed it but little, half a mile ahead of them. All was still and smooth as a glass mirror. Being neared and gained in shore at the same time, the gunboats were still engaging the frigate, and did not appear to pay any attention to the Ribera. Coming down at last, the breeze reached them, and the frigate lightened at first, and then gradually increasing, while the Ribera foamed through the water. It had now every chance of cutting off some of the gunboats. The frigate turned her sails and steered towards the flotilla, which now thought proper to haul off and put their heads in shore, followed by the frigate firing her bow chasers. The Ribera was not without half gunshot in shore, and steering so as to intercept them. As she rapidly closed, the flotilla scarcely knew how to act. Jack would be to lose time, and allow the frigate to come up and occasion her own captures. They sat at themselves firing at her as she continued to run down between them and the land. Near Jack opened his fire with his 18-pound carronades and long 9s. The gunboats returned his fire, and they were within a quarter of a mile when Jack shortened sail on his topsail, and a warm engagement took place. Jen and 1 of the gunboats being in a few minutes dismantled. The frigate under rolled canvas came rapidly up, and her shot now fell thick. The little then ceased firing, passing about 2 cabbies' length ahead of the Ribera, and making all possible sail for the land. Jack now fired the flotilla as they passed his larboard broadside, while with his starboard he poured in grape and canister upon the unfortunate gunboat, which was dismasted, which soon hauled down her colours. In a few minutes more, the remainder were too distant from the carronades, and as they did not fire, Jack turned to take possession of his prize, sending a boat with 10 men on board, and leaving her close to take her in tow. Once more, the frigate was also hove to in a cable's length from the Ribera, and our hero lowered down his other quarter boat to go on board. Have we any men hurt, Mr. Oxby? Inquired Jack. The Spearling has lost his thumb with a piece of language, and James has a bad wound in his thigh. Well, we'll call for the surgeon to come on board. Jack pulled up to the frigate and went up to the side, touched his hat in due form, and was introduced by the midshipman to the other side, where the captain stood. Easy, exclaimed the captain. Captain Sawbridge, replied one. Our hero was surprised. Good heavens! What brought you here? Said the captain. What vessel is that? The Ribera, a letter of marque, commanded and owned by Mr. Easy, replied Jack, laughing. Captain Sawbridge gave him his hand. Come down with me into the cabin, Mr. Easy. I'm very glad to see you. Give you credit for your conduct, and still more anxious to know what has induced you to come out again. I knew that you had left the service. Jack, in a few words, told us the object in fitting out the Ribera. But, continued Jack, allow me to congratulate you upon your promotion, which I was not aware of. May I ask where you left the Harpy, and what is the name of your frigate? Latona, I have only been appointed to her 1 month, after an action in which the Harpy took a large corvette, and moored home with dispatches to England. We sailed yesterday evening from Gibraltar, where we calmed the whole night, and attacked this morning by the gunboats. How is Captain Wilson, sir? I believe he is very well, but I have not seen him. How did you know, then, that I had left the service, Captain Sawbridge? Mr. Gascoigne is now on board. Gascoigne, exclaimed our hero. Yes, he was sent up to join the Aurora by the governor, but she had left the fleet, and having served his time in a passing day ordered, he passed, and thought he might as well go home with me and see if he could make any interest for his promotion. Pray, Captain Sawbridge, that gunboat, our prize, are yours. It ought to be wholly yours, but the fact is by the regulations we share. Though my heart, sir, will you send an assistant surgeon on board to look after 2 of my men who are hurt? Yes, Director, now send your boat away, Easy, with directions to your officer of command. We must go back to Gibraltar, for we have received some injury, and I am sorry to say lost some men. You are going then, I presume, to stay on board and dine with me. We shall be at anchor before night. I will, with pleasure, but now I must send my boat away and shake hands with Gascoigne. Gascoigne was under the half-deck, waiting to receive his friend, for he had seen him come up the side from the station on the forecastle. A hurried conversation took place. After he dismissed his boat with the assistant surgeon in it to dress the 2 wounded men. Jack then went on deck, talked with the officers, looked with pleasure at the Ribera with a gunboat in tow, keeping company with the frigate, although only under the same canvas. Promised Gascoigne to spend the next day with him whether on shore or on board the Rebera, and then just returned to the cabin where he had a long conference with Captain Sawbridge. When you first entered the service, easy to Captain Sawbridge, I thought that the sooner the service was rid of you, the better. Now that you've left it, I feel that it was lost one who in all probability would have proved a credit to it. Many thanks, sir, replied Jack, but how can I be midshipman with £8,000 a year? I agree with you, that is impossible. Dinner servant, go into the after cabin, and the steward will give you all to require. His face and hands were not a little grimed with their gunpowder, washed himself, combed out his curly black hair, and found all the party in the fore cabin. Gascoigne had not been asked in the fore, and was by the consideration of Captain Sawbridge added to the number. Before long, dinner was on the table, and the first lieutenant reported that it was necessary to turn the hands up as they were close to the anchorage. The party therefore broke up sooner than otherwise would have been the case. As soon as the Latona's sails were furled, Captain Sawbridge went ashore to acquaint the governor with the results of the action. He asked Jack to accompany him, but our hero, wishing to be with Gascoigne, excused himself until the next day. Now, he said Gascoigne, as soon as the captain had gone over the side, I will ask permission to go on board with you, or will you ask? I'll ask, replied Jack. A gentleman of fortune has more weight with him a first lieutenant than a midshipman. The gentleman of the first lieutenant, and with one of his polite bows, hoped, if duty would permit, he would honour him by coming on board that evening with some of his officers to see the Rebera and to drink a bottle or two of champagne. But the lieutenant of the Rebera was anchored not 2 cables length from him, replied that as soon as he had shifted the prisoners and secured the gunboat, he'd be very glad. So 3 or 4 more of the officers, and then Jack begged as a favour that his old friend Mr. Gascoigne be permitted to go with him now, as he had important passion and trust to his care to England. First Lieutenant was very willing, and Gascoigne and our hero jumped into the boat, and were once more in all the confidence of our tried and preserved friendship. Then thinking of it, I've made up my mind, said to Gascoigne, I shall gain little or nothing by going home for my promotion. I might as well stay here, as I've served my time and passed my pay is now of little consequence. Will you take me with you? Exactly what I was thinking of, Ned. Do you think that Captain Sawbridge will consent? I do. He knows how I'm circumstanced. And my going home is merely because he's tired of looking after the Aurora. We'll go together and ask him tomorrow, replied Jack. At all events, we'll have a more gentlemanly companion than Mr. Oxbelly, but not so steady, Ned. The lieutenant and officers came on board and passed a merry evening. There was nothing passed more time more agreeably than that champagne, and if you did not affront this regal wine by mixing of any other, he never punished you till the morning. A council of war in which Jack decides he will have one more cruise. As Captain Sawbridge did not return on board that evening, Easy went on shore and called upon him at the governor's, to whom he was introduced, and received an invitation to dine with him. As Gascoigne could not come on shore, Hero took his opportunity of making his request to Captain Sawbridge. So the person he had with him was not such as he wished and could confide everything to, that is, not one to whom he could talk about Agnes. Jack, as he found that Captain Sawbridge did not immediately assent, pressed the matter at heart. At last, Captain Sawbridge reflected Gascoigne's interest hereafter would be much greater through his friend Easy than any of the court, and the more the friendship was cemented, the more advantageous it might prove to Gascoigne. If his assent to our hero's wish, he called on board of the Latona to acquaint Mr. Gascoigne and the first lieutenant of Captain Sawbridge's intentions. Then board of the Rebera and ordered Messi to come with his portmanteau on shore to the inn, and that he might rest for dinner. Gascoigne now considered it as not belonging to the Latona, and was permitted to accompany him, and Jack found himself looking out the window at which he had hung out his trousers upon the memorable occasions when the boatswain had to follow his precept of duty of bizarre decency. What's the adventure I passed through since that, Jack? Not much more than 4 years ago, then not 3 weeks in the service. But Jack fell into deep reverie and thought of the baboon and of Agnes. The prayers of the Latona were all made good by the next day, and Gascoigne received his discharge ticket when on board of the Rebera. The gunboat was put in the hands of the agent, and shortly after was purchased by government. The Rebera's crew did not, however, obtain the prize money and share of the head money, for she had 70 men on board until their return, but as they said, they had broken the ice, and that was everything. It gave them confidence in themselves and in their vessel and their commander. Our hero waited a short time after the Latona, having first taken leave of Captain Sawbridge and committed to his care a letter to Dr. Middleton. Once more behold the trio together, the 2 midshipmen hanging over the taffrail, and Messi standing by them. They had rounded Europa Point, and with a fine breeze off the land, were flying close-hauled along the Spanish shore. Mr. Oxbelly was also walking near them. When I was cruising here, it was very different, observed Jack. I had a vessel which I did not know how to manage, to which I could not command, and had not been for Messi, it would have become of me. So you know very well how to get out of scrapes. Anyhow, yes, and how to get into them, continued Gascoigne, and how to get others out of them, too, Ned. No more of that, Hal, as thou lovest me, cried Gascoigne. I have often wondered what has been the lot of poor Azar. The lot of most women, Ned, in every country, prized at first, neglected after, is the lot she might have had with you. Perhaps so, replied Ned, with a sigh. So you get everybody out of a scrape, you get me out of a scrape. I do not recollect how, Mesty. You get me out from boiled kettle for young gentlemen, the devil of the scrape. And I'm sure I've got you out of a scrape, Mr. Oxbelly. How's, Mesty, how so? Have I not prevented your quarrelling with your wife every night? Certainly, sir, you have been the means. But do you know, when we were engaging the other day, I could not help saying to myself, I wish my wife was here now, holding little Bill at the hatchway. But at night, Mr. Oxbelly. Why, then I'm afraid I should have wished her home again. It's astonishingly comfortable I sleep now every night. Besides, this climate will be intolerable, Mr. Oxbelly is a very large woman, very large indeed. Well, but now we must hold a council of war. Are we to run up the coast or to shape a course direct for Palermo? Course direct we shall take nothing, that is certain, said Gascoigne. If we take nothing, we shall make no prize money, continued Oxbelly. If we make no prize money, the men will be discontented, said Ox. Easy. But nothing to do will be dashed stupid, continued Messi. Now, on the other side of the question, if we steer for Palermo, we shall be sooner there and sooner home. To which I replies to Gascoigne, the sooner for the cruise is thus we shall have your company. I shall have to sleep with Mrs. Oxbelly, continued Oxbelly. Have fine ship, fine gun, fine men do nothing, replied Massey. Bide a power like that, Master Easy. You want 8 months of coming of age, Jack, observed Gascoigne. Won't make a difference of more than 3 or 4 weeks, said Mr. Ox, but the expense has been great, very great. But what, Jack? Agnes. Agnes will be better defended going home by men who have been accustomed to be in action. As you're waiting a little longer, it will only make her love you a little more. Sleep single a little longer, Mr. Easy. It's very pleasant, said Mr. Oxblood. That's very bad advice of yours, observed Gascoigne. Stop a little, Mr. Easy, said Gascoigne. You must know very good advice. Well then, replied Jack. Well, as I am quite in the minority, we will work up the whole coast up the Toulon. After all, there's nothing very pleasant in commanding your own ship, and I'm not in a hurry to resign, so that point's decided. Barrow steered to the land at sunset. They were not 4 miles from the lofty blue mountains which overhang the town of Malaga. There were many vessels lying at the bottom of the bay, close in with the town. The town now fell light. And the Barbera, she could not fetch the town, tacked as it were a merchant vessel standing in and showed American colours, a hint which they took from perceiving 3 or 4 large vessels lying in the outer roads, the colours of that nation they hoisted at the peak. What is your intention, Jack? Said Gascoigne. I'll be hanged if I know it yet. I know of working up the outer roads and anchoring at night, boarding the American vessels and gaining intelligence. Not a bad idea. We shall then learn if there is anything to be done, and if not, we may be off at daylight. The pratique boat will not come until after sunset. They don't even could pass for an American bound for Barcelona or anywhere else. The outer roads where the vessels lie are hardly within gunshot. Master resumed his sailor's clothes, now observed. What we do, masters, you do quickly. Time for all thing. Time for show face and fight. Time for hide face, crawl, and steal. Very true, Master. We'll crawl this time and steal if we can. It's not the warfare like best of the two. Very good, Master. I suppose you don't steal aboard a Palaka ship. You not see Miss Agnes. Very true, Master. Board ship, Mr. Oxbelly. Mr. Oxbelly not good for boats, observed Master, showing his teeth. It was dark before their barrows anchored in the outer roads, a cable's length astern of the outermost American vessel. One of her quarter-boats was lowered down, and Gascoigne and her hero pulled alongside, and lying on their oars, hailed and asked the name of the vessel. So may God, just now I forget her name, replied a negro, looking over the gang. Who's the captain? So help me God, she's gone on shore. It's the maid on board. No, help me God, he's gone ashore too. Who is on board then? So help me God, nobody on board but Pompey and that me. Good shipkeepers at all events, said Jack. A ship in the outer roads with only black on board. I say, Pompey, do they always leave you in charge of the vessel? No, sir, but tonight great pleasure on shore, and everybody dancing, sing, get drunk, keep a robbery, and all that. What is it, a festival? So help me God, I know not, sir. Is there anybody on board of the other vessels? Everybody gone on shore. Suppose they have black men. He stay on board. Good night, Pompey. Good night, sir. Who I say call when Captain come on board? Captain Easy. Captain Heasy. Very well, sir. A hero pulled up another ship and found it equally deserted, but at the third he found the second mate with his arm in a sling. With him they gained the information it was a great festival, being the last day of the carnival, and everyone was thinking of nothing but amusement. Of a notion, said the mate, and replied that you're American. You guessed right, replied Jack. What ship and from what port? Rhode Island, the Citizen of Mary, replied Gascoigne. I thought you were of New York. What news do you bring? Nothing, said replied. You were from your Liverpool last. Several questions put now by the American maid, and scans very skillfully Gascoigne, then inquired who the market was. So Macon replied all these inquiries before they could ask apparently indifferent questions of the American traders. At last Gascoigne inquired, do you think they would allow us to go on shore? The pratique boat has not been on board. They never find you out if you are off before daylight. I doubt if they know that you are anchored. So in Liverpool you would have a clean bill of health, and if they found it out, they would not say much. They were never particular of a notion. What are those vessels lying inshore? I guess they have olive oil on board, the chief of them. But there are 2 double Latines come in from Valparaiso the day before yesterday with hides and copper. How they skipped the British I can't tell, but they did, and they're sure enough. Good night, then. You won't take a glass of sling this fine night with the countrymen. Tomorrow, my good fellow, tomorrow. I must go on shore now. Our hero and Gascoigne return on board the Ribera. So with Oxbow and Massey, then manned and armed the 2 quarter and stern boats. They thought it advisable to hoist out their longboat. No firearms were permitted to be taken. It's going off by accident or otherwise, an alarm should be given. Hero and Massey proceeded in the first boat and pulled in for the town. Gascoigne shortly after in the distance, second, and the boatswain in the jolly boat followed at some distance. There was no notice taken of them. They pulled gently down to the landing place, which was deserted. There was a blaze of light and the sounds of revelry in every quarter on shore, but the vessels appeared equally deserted as American ones in the offing. Finding themselves unobserved, for they had taken the precaution to pull only 2 oars in each boat, they dropped gently alongside one of the double-masted lateen vessels. Massey up on board. He peeped down the cabin and received a man lying in the lockers. He came up to him in a stealthy manner, closed the hatch softly, and said, "All right, Jack. Let us going to take out this vessel," which he did very successfully. For it was very dark, and although there were sentries posted not far off, their eyes and ears were turned toward the town, listening to the music. The second vessel or concert was boarded the same way, but here they found a man on deck whom they were obliged to seize and gag. They put him down in the cabin, and Massey with another boat's crew cut her cables and swept her gently out towards the American vessels. One more vessel was acquired, and Jack, pulling 2 oars as usual, saluted a galliot heavily laden, but whatever cargo assisted was not known. Thus they found 2 men in the cabin playing cards, whom they seized and bound, and cutting her cables were obliged to make sail upon her, as she was much too large to sweep out. As they were making sail, they, however, met with an interruption which they did not expect. The crew belonged to the vessel, having had enough amusement for the evening, intending to sail the next morning, had thought it right to come off sooner than the others. It was then about midnight. Later, and while some of Jack's men were aloft, he had 6 with them. Jack, to his annoyance, heard a boat coming off from the shore. The men in her singing a chorus. The gallant was at that time just under steerage way. Her topsails had been loose and her jib hoisted. Former had not been sheeted home, for the 3 men below could not in the dark find the ropes. 3 men were on the foreyard, loosing the foresail, and Jack was undetermined whether to call them down immediately or to allow them to loose the sail, and thus get good way on the vessel, prevent the boat which was loaded with men from overtaking them. It was not more than 20 yards from the galliot when, not finding her where they left her, they pulled to the right and lay on their oars. They gave a moment of time, but they soon spied her out. Caramba, so was the exclamation. The head of the boat was pulled round. Down, my boys. In a moment by the swiftest, cried Jack. Here's a boat on board of us. The men ran a few seconds on deck, and the others, who had now sheeted home the topsails, hastened aft. They soon gathered way, but before that her way was sufficient. The boat had pulled under the counter, and the Spaniards, letting go their oars, swung fore and aft, climbing up their knives in their teeth. Scuffle ensued, and they were thrown down again, but they renewed their attempt. Our hero, perceiving a small water or wine cask lashed to the gun, would cut it loose with his cutlass. One of the men who was by his side pushed over and dropped it into the boat. It struck the gun, was 12 a plank, and the boat began to fill rapidly. In the meantime, the galliot had gained way. The boat could not longer be held on from its weight, and dropped astern with the men in it. Those who were half in and half out were left clinging to the gunwale of the vessel, and as they climbed up they were secured and put down in the cabin. Fortunately, no firearms had been used on either side. The alarm was not given generally, but the sentry reported fighting on board of one of the vessels, and the people of the guard boat were collected and pulled out. They only arrived in time to see that the galliot was under way, and that the other 2 vessels of Valparaiso were not in their berths. They on shore gave the alarm. The gunboats, of which there were 3 at the mole, were ordered out, but half the crew and all the officers were on shore, some at balls, others drinking at taverns and posadas. Before they could be collected, all 3 vessels were alongside their bearer, and not aware that anything had been discovered. Our hero and his crew were lulled to security. Jack had gone aboard, leaving 14 of his men on board the galliot. Gascoigne had done the same. Messi still remained on board his vessel, and they were congratulating themselves and ordering the men on board the windlass when they heard the sound of oars. Silence, what is that? Exclaimed Oxford. The gunboats or rowboats, as sure as I'm alive. At this moment, Master jumped off the side. Master is a bare rowboat not far off. So do Master. Gascoigne, jump into the boat. Tell the men in the prize to make all sail right out, and leave us to defend their retreat. Stay on board of one and divide your men. That right, Master. He's a Gascoigne, be smart. And now, sir, cut cable, make sail. No time to get up anchor. The order was given. Although the men were aloft in a moment and very expeditious, they were very carried her head round, and the jib was hoisted. They could perceive the boom of the 3 gunboats pulling and sailing not 5 cables' length from them. Though rather short-handed, topsails, course, and topgallant sails were soon set. The men down to the quarters and the guns cast loose before the gunboats were close under their stern. Then Joanna too braced up, and her bearers stood across them to the westward. Why the devil don't they fire? Said Jack. I think because they have no powder, said Messi. Messi was right. The ammunition chests of the gunboats were always landed when they were in the mole. His axes, which might rise from the crew, being continued with cigars in their mouths. In the hurry, they had quite forgotten to put them on board. At all events, we have powder, said Jack, and now we'll prove it. Grape and Canish, my lads, and take good aim. The commanders of the gunboats had hailed each other and agreed to board their bearer, but she had good way on her and sailed fast, and they pulled. A well-directed broadside astonished them. They had no idea of her force, and the execution done was so great that they first left on their oars and pulled back to the mole with all speed, leaving the bearer in quiet possession of her prize, which had already gained the 2 miles in the offing. Their bearer, as soon as Jack perceived that the gunboats had retreated, was put into the wind and soon closed from their captors, when she was hove to till daylight. The 3 vessels in company. Gascoigne returned on board, prize masters were selected, and Jack was determined to keep them all with him and take them to Palermo, which was another slight difference of opinion between those who should be friends. The 2 Latin vessels proved of considerable value, being laden with copper, hides, and cochineal. The galliot was laden with sweet oil, and was also of no despicable prize. They were already, and to the mortification of the good people of Malaga, sailed away to the east without interruption. They did do job pretty well, Master Easier, observed Messi, as he laid the breakfast. But nothing like trying, replied Gascoigne. I'm sure when we stood into the bay, we would have sold my prize money for a doubloon. How do I share, Jack? Well, as one of the crew, Ned, for you are supernumerary, and our articles in agreement of our prize money was signed previous to our sailing. The share of Miss Oxbow's class by rights, replied Gascoigne. That what to take half my prize money away, I shall want it all, Mr. Gascoigne, to pass my wife for giving her the slip. Ah, very well, I'll get all I can. For 10 days all ran down the coast, getting much too fast for the wishes of the crew, who were anxious to make more money. They seized the fishing boat and put on board of her for the 4 prisoners, which they had found to the vessels, and arrived off Barcelona, without falling in with friend or foe. Next morning, the wind being very light, they discovered a large vessel at daylight astern of them to the westward, and soon made her out to be a frigate. She made all sail and chase, but what gave them very little uneasiness, as they assured that she was a British cruiser. One fear ever came over them, that they would, if she came up with them, express a portion of their men. There's some here, and to Mrs. Oxbow's at Southsea, said Oxbow, they'll take some of the men, the more so, as supposing us to be a Spanish convoy, they will be disappointed. They'll hardly take them out of the prizes, observed Easy. I don't know that. Men must be had for His Majesty's service somehow. It's not their fault, Mr. Easy. The Navy must be manned, and as things are so must things be. It's King's prerogative, Mr. Easy, and we cannot fight the battles of the country without it. Yes, replied Gascoigne, although as soon as the service of seamen are no longer wanted, you find that there are demagogues on the shore who exclaim about impressing. And they're quiet enough on the point when they know that their lives and property depend upon sailors' exertions. Very true, Mr. Gascoigne. It's not our fault we are obliged to take men by force. It's the fault of those who do not legislate so as to prevent the necessity. Mrs. Oxbow used to say that she would easily manage the matter if she were Chancellor of the Exchequer. I dare say Mrs. Oxbow would make a very good Chancellor of the Exchequer, replied Gascoigne, smiling. One thing is certain, that if they gave this subject half the consideration they have of less magnitude, an arrangement may be made by which His Majesty's Navy would never be short of men. No doubt, Mr. Gascoigne. Nevertheless, the king's prerogative must never be given up. There I agree with Mr. Oxbye. It must be held in case of sudden emergency and absolute need. We'll argue that point by and by, replied Jack, but now let us consult as to our measures. My opinion is that if I made more sail, we could beat the frigate, but she would come up with the prizes. That's the best thing we can do, Mr. Easy. Let's send a boat on board of them and take out all the men that can possibly be spared. There may be no excuse for experiencing them. Yes, replied Gascoigne, as the wind is falling, it is possible it may fall calm, and they may send their boats supposedly separate a mile or two from each other. They're very good advice, Master Gascoigne, observed Messi. The plan was acted upon. Only 3 men were left in the lateens, and 4 in the galliot. The vessels, in obedience to the orders, steered off on both sides of the Barbera, who made all sail and stared ahead of the prizes. This maneuver was perceived on board the frigate, and made him sure that it was a Spanish convoy attempting to escape. The fireman was on a boat, sails wet, and every exertion made to come up. But about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when the frigate was 8 or 9 miles off, it fell calm. As Gascoigne predicted, and the heads of all vessels, as well as the frigate, were now round the compass. There's our boats, said Mr. Oxbye. They will have a long pull and all for nothing. How savage they will be, observed Gascoigne. Never mind that, replied Jack. Misty says that dinner is ready. After dinner they went on deck and found the boats had separated, once pulling for each of the prize and 2 for the Ribera. In less than an hour they would probably be alongside. And now let us decide how we are to act. We must not resist if they attempt to impress the men. I'm thinking about that matter, Miss Easy. It appears to me that the men must be permitted to act as they please, and that we must be neuter. I, as Lieutenant in His Majesty's service, cannot, of course, act, neither can Mr. Gascoigne. You're not in the service, but I should recommend you to do the same. The men have a right to resist, if possible, is admitted. They always do so, and never are punished for so doing. Under the guns of the frigate, of course, they should only have to submit. Those 2 boats do not contain more than 25 men, I should think, and our men are the stronger party. We had better leave it to them and stand neuter. They had very good advice, said Messi. Leave it to us. And Messi walked away forward, where the seamen were already in consultation. Jack also agreed to the prudence of this measure, and he perceived that the seamen under consultation with Messi were all arming themselves for resistance. The boats were now close on board, and English colours were hoisted at the gaff. This did not overcheck the impetus of the boats. With their ensigns trailing the still waters astern of them, which dashed alongside, an officer leapt on board, cutlass in hand, followed by the seamen of the frigate. The men of the Ribera remained collected forward, Easy, Gascoigne, expertly aft. What vessel is this? Cried the lieutenant who commanded the boats. Jack, with the greatest politeness, took off his hat and told him that it was the Ribera, letter of marque, and that pipers were ready for his inspection, and the other vessels. Prize Ribera cut off out of Malaga Bay, replied Jack. Then you are a privateer, observed the disappointed officer. Where are your papers? Mr. Oxbye obliged me by bringing them up, said Jack. Fat Jack of the Bone House, observed the lieutenant, looking at Oxbye. Lieutenant of His Majesty's service, no longer standing yourself, young man, replied Oxbye firmly. And who is he who ever meets you in any other city will make it your answer for your insolent remarks. These observed the lieutenant, ironically. Now, if you had said you were a boatswain or gunner, consider yourself kicked, for short, Oxbye, losing his temper. Hey, why, you old porpoise? Sir, observed Jack, who listened with indignation. Mr. Oxbye's lieutenant is a Majesty's service, and you have no right to insult him, even if you were not. So you're all officers, replied the lieutenant. I am, sir, replied Gascoigne, an officer of Majesty's service, and on board of this vessel by permission of Captain Stobridge of Latona. Now, as until a few months ago, continued Jack, at present I am captain owner of this vessel, but here are the papers. You will have no obstruction from us in the execution of your duty. At the same time, call on the 2 witnesses by your side and your own men to bear witness of what takes place. Very well, sir, just as you please. Your papers are received are all right. Now you will oblige by mustering your men. Certainly, sir, replied Jack. Send all my men to the aft to muster, Mr. Oxbye. Then came after the mainmast and Messi at their head and answered their names. As the men passed over, the lieutenant made a pencil mark against 10 of them, who appeared the finest seamen. When the toll had been called, he ordered those men to get their bags and go into the boat. Sir, you must observe, I'm short-handed with my men away in prizes, and as I'm commander of this vessel, protest against the proceeding. If you insist upon taking them, of course I can do nothing, observing Jack. Sir, I'm only not going on board empty-handed at all events. Well, sir, I can say no more, said Jack. Looking after the taffrail to which Oxbye and Gascoigne retreated. Come, my men, get those men into the boat, said the lieutenant. But the men on all retreated forward in a body, with Messi at their head, and had armed themselves, and the seamen of the frigate had gone forward in obedience to their officer to lead the men selected into the boat. They immediately desired to keep back. The scuffle forward and attracted the notice of the lieutenant, who had immediately summoned all his men out of the boats. Mutiny, by heavens! Come up, all of you, my lads. Then came forward with a sabre in one hand, a pistol in the other, and then addressed the seamen of the frigate. Judges, my lads, you are not so strong as we. You not got better arms. We got not on a frigate now, and all determination not to go aboard. Suppose you want us, take us. Suppose you can, by all the power, but we make mincemeat of you anyhow. Seamen paused. They were ready to fight for the country, but not to be killed by or kill those who were their own countrymen, and who were doing exactly what they would have done themselves. The lieutenant thought otherwise. He was exasperated by the sensation. You black scoundrel, left you out because I thought you not worth having, but now I'll add you to the number. Stop a little, replied Messi. The lieutenant would not take the Ashantee's very prudent advice. He flew forward to seize Messi, but striking him a blow with the flat of his sabre, it almost levelled him to the deck. At this, the men of the officer of the frigate darted forward, but after a short scuffle in which a few sounds were received, were beaten back into the boats. Then was thrown in after them by the nervous arm of Mesty, who, assailed by cold shot and other missiles, they sheered off with precipitation, fell back in the direction of the frigate. There'll be a row about this, said Oxbye. As soon as they come clear of the vessel, if the frigate gets hold of us, she will show us no mercy. There's a breeze coming from the north. How fortunate! We shall be 3 leagues to windward, and may escape. That if she could catch it at any point of sail, they can come up with the prize and they can do nothing with them. Now the boats which boarded them are already returned to the frigate. She must wait for them, and that will be a start. It will be night before they can make sail. Fire again for the prizes to close, said Jack. We will put the men on board again, then we'll be off to Palermo as fast as we can. We can do no better, said Ox, but if ever I chance to meet that fellow again, I will trouble him to repeat his words. Trim the sails, my lads. His language is unpardonable, observed Jack. The men of the service mysteries have always observed that some officers appear to imagine that because they are under the king's pennant, they are warranted in assaulting and tyrannizing over all those that have not the honour to hoist it. The very fact of their being king's officers should be an inducement to them to show an example of courtesy and gentlemanly conduct in the exertion of their duty, however unpleasant it may be. It is only those who consider for themselves want to make themselves of importance by the pennant they serve under, replied our hero. Very true, Miss Reezy. You are not aware that a great part of the ill will shown to the service is owing to the insolence of those young men in office. The king's name is a warrant for every species of tyranny and unwarrantable conduct. I remember Mr. Oxblood telling one of them hen. I beg your pardon, Mr. Oxblood, interrupted Jack, but we have no time to chat now. The phrase is coming down fast, and perceive the prize are closing. Let us lower down the boat and send the men on board again, and send them their orders. This I will do in writing, in case they part company. Very true, so it'll be dark in half an hour, and as we are now standing in shore, they will think that we intend to remain on the coast. As soon as it is quite dark, we'll sail our course for Palermo. We'll go down and look at the chart. Which winds of the nautical adventures of Mr. Midshipman Easy. In half an hour the prize were again alongside, the men put on board, and the boat hoisted up. The frigate still remained becalmed to leeward and hoisted in her boats. They watched until she was hid by the shades of night, then wearing round stood away, and the wind 2 points free for the coast of Sicily. This morning the sun was there, was nothing in sight. Strange anomaly in state of high civilization, there you found your countrymen. Avoid them or dreader than ever your foes. The run was prosperous, the weather was fine, the prize did not part company. 6 days they were bearing a convoy anchored Palermo Bay. The wind was light in the morning, and they stood in, and as Jack had a large blue flag with Ribera in white letters hoisted at the main. Don Philip and Don Martin were on board, and greeting our hero before the Riberas anchored, plunged into the clear blue water. Make sure your hero received, having been assured of the health of Agnes and her parents, was satisfactory. The disappearance of the friar had at first occasioned much surprise. But the servants of Don Ribera's sword was returned with the black and the letter of Don Ribera sent to the convent. Requesting his presence was opened and read. There was no suspicion against the family. Hundred conjectures had been afloat, but gradually they subsided, and it was at last supposed to have been carried off by banditti. Some of them who had been taken in it acknowledged that they had seized a friar, and on the day which they could not recollect, the writer will remember that it was Mesty. The bearer received pratique, and Jack hasted on shore with Don Philip and his brother, and was once more in the company of Agnes, who, in our hero's opinion, had improved since his departure. Most young men in love think the same after an absence, provided it's not too long. The prizes are sold, the money distributed, and every man is satisfied as the cargoes fetched, the large for some, and they had anticipated. Must pass over the pros and cons of Don Ribera and his lady. The pleading of Jack for the immediate nuptials, the unwillingness of the mother to part with her only daughter, the family consultation, the dowry, and all these particulars. A month after his arrival, Jack was married, and was, of course, as happy as the day was long. He was after Mr. Oxblood advised departure, as the expenses of the vessel were heavy, and it was his duty to do so. Don Philip and Don Martin obtained leave to go to England with their sister and her husband. Nevertheless, Jack, who found in Palermo a very pleasant residence, was persuaded by the Don and his wife to remain there a month, and then there was crying and sobbing and embracing and embarking. Last Ribera's cabins had been arranged for the reception of the party, weighed and stayed sail for Malta. Jack had been promised to call upon the governor. In 4 days they anchored in Villette Harbour, and Jack paid his respects to his old friend, who was very glad to see him. The governor sent his own barge for Mrs. Easy, and she was installed in the state apartments, which were acknowledged to be very comfortable. Hero had, as usual, a long story to tell the governor. The governor listened to it very attentively, probably because he thought it would be the last, which opportunity Jack employed to narrate the unfortunate end of his father. I would not have said so at the time, but now the sound is healed. The wound is healed. I tell you, the best thing that could have happened. Poor old gentleman, he was mad indeed. He remained a fortnight at Malta, and then Signora Easy embarked, and once more the Ribera made sail. Very well, my lad. What I have seen of your brothers-in-law pleases me much, and as for your wife, it will be your own fault if she is not at all that you could wish. If ever I come to England, I will pay my first visit to Forest Hill. God bless you. Some of us never did go back to England, but this was their final adieu. Once more the Ribera pursued her course, stopped a day or two at Gibraltar, shared the proceeds of the captured gunboat, made sail for England, where she arrived without adventure its accident in 3 weeks. So then, in the last cruise of Mr. Midshipman Easy, as soon as their quarantine at the Mother Bank was over, they disembarked and found Dr. Middleton and Mr. Hanson waiting for them at the George Hotel. Scarcely time to introduce his wife, and the waiter said the lady wished to speak to him. She did not wait to know if Jack was visible, but forced her way past him. Doctor threw a large proportion, and just said at once it must be Mrs. Oxblood, and which conjecture was right. Brace, what do you mean by carrying off my husband in that way? She exclaimed, the lady, red with anger. God forbid to carry your husband, Mrs. Oxblood. He's rather too heavy. Yes, sir, but it's a little better than kidnapping, and there's a law for kidnapping children at all events. I shall send my lawyer to you, that you may depend upon it. You hardly consider your husband as a child, Mrs. Oxblood, replied Jack, laughing. Very well, sir, we shall see. Pray, where is he now? He is on board, Mrs. Oxblood, and will be delighted to see you. I'm not quite so sure of that. He's very anxious to see little Billy, said Gascoigne. What do you know of the little Billy, young man? More anxious to be on shore again. He's quite tired of sleeping single, Mrs. Oxblood. Albert has been talking, has he? Very well, exclaimed the lady in a rage. But, said Easy, I am happy to say that with pay and prize money during his short absence, he has brought home nearly £500. £500, you don't say so, sir, exclaimed Mrs. Oxblood. Are you quite sure of that? Quite sure, replied Gascoigne. £500, well, that is comfortable. Dear me, how glad I shall be to see him. Well, Mr. Easy, it's hard to part with him in such an unhandsome way, but is all for the best in this world. My dear nice lady, your wife is Mr. Easy, but I won't intrude, beg pardon. Where is the brig, Mr. Easy? Now coming into harbour, replied Gascoigne. If you bargain, you can get off for 2 pence. 500 pounds, exclaimed Mrs. Oxblood, whose wrath was now appeased. By all power, she's no fool of a woman, dat, said Master Easy, retreated curtsy. I think Mr. Oxblood very right. Sleep tingle. We have now come to the end of our hero's adventures. That afternoon they all started for Forest Hill, where everything was ready for their reception. Their bearers' men were paid off and very soon distributed on board of His Majesty's ships. The vessel was sold, and Mr. Oxblood retired to Southsea to the society of his wife and little Billy. Obtained from his wife a divorce, this thorough is not handed down. Our hero is now of age, and quieted all within 20 miles of home to balls and dinners, became a great favourite, kept a pack of hounds, rode with the foremost, did a reputation stand for the county on the conservative interest, was elected without much expense, and which was very wonderful, and took a seat in Parliament. Don Philip and Don Martin, after 2 months' stay, took their passage back to Palermo, fully satisfied with the prospect of their sister as to his competence and happiness. Jack had no occasion to argue the point with Agnes. She confirmed at once the religion of her husband, and proved an excellent and affectionate wife. Eventually the mother of 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. Massey held his post with dignity and proved himself trustworthy. Gascoigne, by the interest of the conservative member, who obtained the rank of post captain, was always his devoted and sincere friend. Thus is the history of Mr. Midshipman Easy.